Born just outside of the Motor City, the Irish Hills bring a fast and tough track where a season rolls on, bringing us closer and closer to a championship hunt. Welcome to the virtual Michigan International Speedway and the site of round 10 of the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series right here for Season 3 as we bring you coverage right here on MaxSpeedTV. Happy to have you along for our coverage. We're alongside Francisco Bacchial over in the broadcast booth. We're at top Michigan International Speedway. My name is Kenneth Bueno. Francisco, we've already been 9 races into this Season 3 campaign for the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series. We've seen a lot of racing, a lot of tight-knit racing, a lot of different tracks, but much like Auto Club to start the season, we got another track to roll in the second half of this season as we work closer to the playoffs.
Happy to be on top of the racetrack here, Kenneth, and we're in for a pretty good race, I think, this afternoon from the Michigan Speedway. We started the season at the sister track at Auto Club, which had a more worn surface and lesser banking, but tonight we're going to see higher speeds. We're going to see more aggressive cars in the corner with the extra banking, the extra grip there from both the asphalt and the banking. And we're going to see a lot of drafting here tonight, more so than what we saw at Auto Club. We're going to see these guys be able to run full throttle here for several laps into the run, and that's going to prove to be pivotal as far as the dirty air once we do get into a run. Just where do you want to be in the corners? But if you can get to the outside of somebody, that is going to be very crucial because you can just get hung out there on the bottom.
It's definitely going to be a lot of fun. We talked about last night's ARCA race. We'll get into more detail about that and making the comparisons. But this track, very large, very fast. And it's definitely the one to watch out for, this sister track to the one that we started the season on Auto Club Speedway over on the west side in Fontana, California. But we'll get a better look as to where we are in the virtual world as we take a look at our track map with images courtesy of Google Earth. You'll step into Brooklyn, Michigan. Just on the outskirts of Detroit, you'll find this large 2-mile, 3.2-kilometer venue. Of course, Michigan International Speedway with 18 degrees in each turn. 12 degrees on the main front stretch, or what is otherwise known as the tri-oval, and 5 degrees over on the back straightaway, and that's exactly what you're going to find encompassed here. And with these cars, low horsepower, high downforce is going to bring a lot of high-paced intensity and, of course, a lot of drafting to go with it, like you mentioned, Francisco, as well. This track opened all the way back in 1968. It's played host to a lot of NASCAR Cup Series events, NASCAR Truck Series events, and, of course, the Xfinity Series as well. So it has taken its part in NASCAR's history as a track that is known as very fast and one that could pretty much keep you on edge every second throughout, and also had some IndyCar races as well for a while up until they stopped racing it here from Michigan and overall stopped visiting these very, very large tracks. Nonetheless, drivers right now getting ready for qualifying, but at this point, Francisco, we had an ARCA race to debut last night. On Tuesday, it was the older surface of Michigan, the Legacy Michigan here on Iracing, so it is sort of different, but it's mostly the same. When you talk about structure, when you talk about speed, when you talk about sort of strategy that you look as a driver behind the wheel. So what do these guys have to do in order to keep themselves on par and on pace with these Cup cars specifically?
Well, at least early on in the run, it's going to be managing the draft because you're going to be able to go full throttle for several laps in the early part of the run. So holding on to track position, making sure you don't lose the car suddenly, that'll cause you to have to lift. There's a lot of momentum, not only just immediately in the corner, but on the following straightaway, because you're just going to be down that extra mile an hour or so at the very minimum, the entire length of the straightaway, and they're just going to gobble up that gap that you may have to the car behind. So it's going to be very tough. You don't want to be side by side on these straightaways because you can just lose a ton of time and absolutely kill any momentum and just invite anybody behind you, but while also giving the car in front of you just an extra gap that they can save tires in. And saving tires is going to be very difficult because of the way you have to run this racetrack. It is full throttle, but you lose so much time having to lift that you can't do that. You can't do that and save tires. So saving tires while keeping the car full throttle is going to be something that these guys are going to try their best to discover, and we might see a lot of wide racing. Last night in the ARCA series at the Legacy Michigan, a little bit more of a narrow, true line, but I think today we might see a wider groove. We might see some guys closer towards that yellow line or that white line that we see on the bottom of the racetrack, and we might see some cars up venture towards that fourth lane.
We'll see a lot of wide open action. Of course, this track very large in scope, so you'll see a lot of drivers potentially going 3, 4, maybe even 5 wide if they can make it happen here from Michigan. But as you watch the drivers in a standstill right now behind the Iracing official pace car, that means qualifying has ticked down to 0, and that means it's our time to take a look at your starting grid, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be starting here tonight from virtual Brooklyn, Michigan. On pole is former winner in the series, the 4 of Adam Alishar with a 39.095, the fastest of everybody in qualifying. He'll lead us to the green flag, followed by another Ford Mustang in tow. On the outside of row number 1, it's the 75 of Nicholas Vizzuti.
While Fords are on the front row, we have Camaros in that second row. AJ Green, who was a standout in yesterday's race, finished in the 3rd position. He starts 3rd here tonight. We'll see if he can have another podium run with Christopher Bishop. A good qualifying effort for him. He starts off in the 4th position.
Behind them in row number 3, solid qualifying effort by the 00 of Jesse Priest. He'll line up that car in P5. And Eric Schaefer in the 22, the pole sitter in the ARCA race last night, did not have as much success there, but looking for a lot here in the Cup Series race tonight.
Michael Woolley, the runner-up last week, is able to start once again inside the top 10. Less track position, or a better track position than what he's used to. Can he make some good work of it? With Tyler Murray, league owner, in the number 8 car starting P8.
Back to row number 5, the edge of the top 10. You'll find the 97 of Ken MacArthur in P9. Austin Bloom, the 27 for Stock Motorsports, will file out the top 10.
Lance Hill and Colin Forrester, Stock Motorsports teammates, 2 of the better drivers that we've seen in this series. 2 rookies. They'll be starting next to one another. We'll see if they can tandem their way up to the front. Colin Forrester having 3 wins on the season. Can he make it 4 today?
Back to row number 7, you'll find Ryan Steenbacher, who had a very good outing last night in the top 10 run over the ARCA Series race, and Tony Kibbett in the 7 machine. We'll find out in row number 7. He's in P14 tonight.
Your 7th row with Scott Baker, I believe making his first start of the season in that 15th position, with Chuck Munier down in the 16th position.
Back to row number 9, you'll find the 08 of Pete Bruni rolling off from 17th, and Kyle Benson back all the way in 18th is going to have some work to do to start this race, but he ends up in row 9.
Looking at your 10th row, we see Craig Lonslonger, a big name who was having a solid run yesterday but made a mistake in green flag pit stop, sped on pit road, derailed him to finishing last on the lead lap. Is going to try to avoid that here tonight with the other Munier, CJ Munier, in the 20th position.
We'll look back to the rest of the field, and you'll see every single row. It's a full 31-car field, one of the largest, if not the largest, we've seen here in this series, and especially throughout this season here from Michigan. So we're going to have a full field. We're going to have a lot of action. We're going to have a lot of close-knit racing. And with these 2 up at the front of this field to kick things off, it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's take a look at our race analysis before we get started here from Michigan International Speedway. Of course, a little more info about the track itself, but you'll take a look at pit road speed limit, solid 55 miles per hour, which is tough task to go with, especially when you're going from upwards of 180 miles per hour all the way to 55. We've got no stages. We've got 5 tire sets in the pits. Field window looks to about 25 to 30 laps. We saw a lot of green flag action over the ARCA race last night. We'll see if we get any sort of pit strategy calls here in the Cup race this evening. Pace car makes its way down to pit road. It'll be the 4 of Adam Alishar, the 75 of Nicholas Suzuki, your front row, and the 2 that'll lead us to the green flag as we go underway from Michigan.
And eager there in that 6th position. Look who's already making a move to the outside. Vizzuti having to defend that as they work their way towards turn 1. You can see the field spreading everywhere around this racetrack, up towards the wall in some cases, 3 wide throughout the field. Aggressive racing.
There's a quick start for the 48 of AJ Green. He already gets to the inside, moves his way to 2nd. You see the 75 already back to P4 under fire from the 69 of Woolley. That allows the 00, actually the 0 machine of Jesse Priest, to end up in 3rd, as I believe we may have had an incident on track, but we'll see if we stay green from here on out. Actually, we won't. Caution will fly. We obviously heard something happen near the rear of the field, and it may have been as a result of the 7 of Tony Kibbett in an issue here early on lap 1.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what may have happened there, Kenneth. A lot of aggressive racing on this first lap. Everyone trying to get track position, trying to get settled in. We'll just have to see. Oh, vicious crash on the back straightaway. I think I saw one car going into the infield upside down. We see something happen there, and he makes contact with Lautenschlager. Oh my God, Lautenschlager goes into the infield.
Lautenschlager goes for a wild ride. I think it's the first time we've seen that here in Michigan. He gets absolutely door slammed by the 7 and hits a very odd part of the track, and he has no choice but to really default, go straight for pit road. I think sort of shades of Mark Martin, Francisco, over at Talladega a long time ago. We saw it happen, but we'll take a better look at the incident. Started right here, 3 wide. There's Pete Bruni in the middle. Oh, and I think he just tried to side draft the 7 of Kivett and then got into the 13. And what a wild ride the 13 goes for. The 7 goes hopping over to the grass. And all of a sudden, multiple drivers involved in our first incident on the first lap. Couldn't even get the first full lap wound up before we put the field to rest under the yellow flag. It'll maintain Adam Alishire at the front of the field as he comes behind the pace car. Interesting incident there, Francisco, but not sort of unfamiliar with these cars, especially with the aero model that they gave these cars. And one of the recent iRacing updates, that side draft really is key when you're trying to hold on to position or even gain a position on another driver. You have to get really close to that quarter panel, take away some of the speed off their car, and then obviously keep up with them. Figure that's exactly what Pete Bruni was just trying to do, just got a little bit too close.
Yeah, they changed something with the Season 3 aero model back in June, and they definitely made the side draft more prominent on most racetracks, especially the super speedways. They made the draft a little bit more, well, not even a little bit, it's a lot more effective now. In fact, a little bit too much if you ask me, but regardless of that, they're just able to pull up to the car in front of you. But at the same time, if you're side by side, you could just put that right front or left front on the quarter panel of the other car you're racing and just absolutely pull them back. And it was a struggle learning that at first, getting used to that as a driver. It was very difficult, but once I had some software improvements when iRacing made some updates to laptop users being able to run better frames. It definitely assisted me in being able to estimate how close I can get, how aggressive I can be with that side draft, and it's really worked out, at least in my end. So I can only imagine what it's like being out there on this racetrack where you have to use it probably all the time to make it work. And right there, Pete Bruni just too close, too early, and already, Kenneth, we've matched the caution count from last week.
Yep, caution counter was won figuratively in the ARCA race last night. Had a lot of green flag action. Had that one yellow, kind of fearing that it was going to start a trend where cautions breed cautions, but stayed green all the way to the end. Got a winner out of it. And the Cup Series already starting their first yellow on the first lap. We'll double them up. Pace car lights are off, so of course we'll get everybody back for the restart when we come back to the start-finish line. What a jump it was for guys like AJ Green and Jesse Prees, able to really make work on the first 2 corners. Got away from the 75 of Nicholas Suzuki, who started in second and is now going to have to start from 4th here on this next restart. He may have more to work with if the 69 Michael Woolley, Austin Bloom, and the 27, any of those guys have anything to say about it. And it was a good jump by the 48 on the opening start. Can only imagine what he can gain on the restart, in our first restart of tonight's race. It'll be on lap 5 of 115. It's a little longer than the ARCA race we had last night. We had only 100 laps before we flew the checkered flag in Tuesday's coverage, but just going to go 15 laps longer. It was a slow burn race in the ARCA race last night, and usually, in contrast, the Cup Series always provides something chaotic, always provides something very different from what we see the night before. Although you're seeing a lot of the same drivers, they're different cars, different tracks most of the time, and of course, different circumstances that give drivers opportunities to either race crazier or whatever happens on track. Usually always something that happens differently, but hopefully we'll have a long green flag stretch when we come back to green flag racing. It'll start with the pace car veering back to the left. It'll be our first restart of the evening. Again, it'll be Adam Alishire at the front of the field, this time on the outside of row 1. And we'll take the green flag on lap 5 of 115. Alishire off to a good start.
And already you see AJ Green pulling up to the outside lane, able to get cleared for second. For a moment, it seems as Suzuki's going to try to get to his outside.
Upper car is already fanning 2-3 wide as they come for turn 1. You can see the outside move there. Vizzuti trying to make something work. Now here comes AJ Green on the outside of your race leader. He picked up a couple spots to start this race. Why not pick up some more on the next lap as he takes away the lead with help from Jesse Prees?
And he goes to the lead as we're going to go 3 wide in an aggressive move to the bottom for the second place position. We'll just have to see if that works out. That is Michael Woolley being aggressive on the short run. And there are 3 by 3 as Austin Bloom goes to the rear bumper to see if he can help.
Austin Bloom got some help too. Tyler Murray and a couple others behind him. 69 in the flash machine trying to go as quickly as possible. He still works the inside 3 wide, and they're almost about 4 heading into turn 1. Look at Colin Forrester, man, the outside all the way up to the wall. He's going to get some sort of help possibly, but he's going to find a run. There is a bit of door contact, and now Austin Bloom gets out of shape. He's going to be able to save it, and we stay green.
A bit of a moment there, Kenneth, but this is aggressive racing early on in this race, but this is what you're going to see for most of the night. These guys are going to be battling for all the track position, every chance they can, because they know that it's going to matter. The draft is just so dependent here that you have to have it. If you can't, then you're just going to lose so much time. Everybody's going to be snake trailing, going all the way up the racetrack. We see a battle now for the lead once again. To the inside goes Jesse Prees, trying to take it away from AJ Green, with Alishire going to go with his teammate.
Alishire going to go up high, so he's going to give some assistance, fill in that gap. Prees not going to have the run out of turn 2 as they're wrecking behind. The 42 gets spun around in the back straightaway. This is indeed going to bring out another caution, and our second one comes out as Jesse Prees able to take the lead away for a moment before getting passed by, back by the 4 and the 48. This time AJ Green going to be the leader. When we get back to the restart, we'll see if anybody comes down pit road, but of course it is the 42 of Christopher Bishop. They are all sorts of torn up. You can see the rear end completely demolished on that Chevrolet Camaro, and it was a good starting position on grid in qualifying for the RC Cola machine, but already I believe got clipped on the entrance to turn 3, or at least close to the exit of turn 2, rather, on the back straightaway. We'll see exactly what happened. We'll take a look.
Yeah, let's see exactly what happened here with Christopher Bishop. And right now, looking at it on my end, it seems as though he tried to drift up the corner to track out towards the wall and make some contact with the 11 of Austin, Reedy, and that's what sent him into the wall. Reedy with a little bit of damage on his left front there, but you see Bishop way down the track, a little bit loose, but then tries to go to the outside, not realizing that Reedy's there, and around he goes.
I just tried to judge it, I guess, a little bit to clear himself, make sure that he had enough space, but you're right on board there with Reedy. Definitely did not have enough space to clear Reedy completely. Obviously got into him, and Reedy, you could see some of the damage there, not only on the left side, he got jacked up a little bit, but that right side here with the contact to the outside wall, you see even more damage there on the front nose of the bow tie machine. And he's pretty much one of the only other drivers involved in that incident apart from Bishop himself. So Reedy's going to have some damage as he comes across the pit road. He's going to see if he can
deploy. A lot of stoppers.
Now, a lot of drivers down pit road. Was going to mention that as soon as we got the yellow flag, whether drivers are going to go down pit road for the first time tonight, whether they were going to be willing to take the risk. And surprisingly enough, a lot of drivers are willing to take that risk and go down pit road anyway. We got a lot of drivers taking 4 tires and fuel. Remember, there's 5 tire sets in this race, so there are still opportunities for driver to get some fresh rubber. But early on lap 9, interesting call that could definitely shape the entirety of this race if it stays green.
Tyler Murray overshot his pit box and lost a lot of time, and Woolley with an extended stay on pit road as well. So these guys losing a lot of track position even with their pit stops, so they're going to have a tough road to recover from this one. But I'm interested in seeing these early stops, Kenneth. We've probably only run 5 laps under the green flag, so not too much wear on these tires. You could probably still go full throttle around this track right now. So I'm interested in seeing what the decision here was. I'm not sure if they're planning the long game here, trying to think of trying to have maybe 2 stops under the green flag, assuming it does go green the rest of the way. Or maybe they're trying to be more aggressive with their tire sets. We saw last week just a 1 caution, and 2 to 3 tire sets were used throughout most of the field, leaving an extra 2 or 3 on pit road without being touched. So maybe given the opportunity to come down pit road, they're trying to be more aggressive this time around.
It could be interesting. You were watching Brennan T. Banks, who won here last time we visited Michigan International Speedway. It was a part of the Dash for Cash qualifiers, and it was one of his first races in this series, but he was also the winner off pit road out of the group that did come down for service that last time by. So it wasn't just for show, that 88 Geico machine. He is the first one out of everybody on the freshest tires. Of course, most of the field, though, on about 9 to 7 lap old tires, so not necessarily too much for wear here on these Goodyear Eagles, but we'll just have to see whether this could shape into a long run and the guys on the fresh tires could have the advantage, and then we may have some equalization later on in the race once these guys may have to pit, or even if other yellows come out, could definitely equalize the competition and definitely not waste the call that these guys are making early on in this event. Well, we'll go green with 10 laps under the books. We'll go to lap 11 once we cross the start-finish line. It'll be Adam Alishire again in the lead. He's able to protect it. He'll go back to the outside. He's going to have help from the 34 of Lance Hill this time in row 2. Jesse Priest still going to man the bottom side on row 1. He's going to have help from fellow Ford Mustangs in Nicholas Suzuki and Jacob Smith, who's worked his way miraculously up to the field through the first handful of laps. Also, given the fact that track position helps when drivers go down pit road. So it's going to be a very interesting shakeup of drivers once we go back green. Not exactly the same players that we had on that restart where we went about almost 3 wide for many positions on end. Saw a little bit of 4 wide as well near the rear of the field. We'll see exactly what happens as the pace car rolls off. We'll have a restart on lap 11. We'll see when Alashar decides to stop on the gas pedal. He's going to have help from the 34. Again, another solid jump out of the 4 machine. We're back on a green for Michigan.
Just when we took the 1 to green there, Tyler Murray and Kyle Benson came back down the road and they topped off on fuel. So interesting call there by those two.
Interesting call there. We'll monitor and see how that goes. Meanwhile, they're 3 wide. Brian M. Smith in the 78. That bright orange and black Toyota gets in as they make contact 3 wide. I believe that was Ken MacArthur on the outside. That was Jacob Smith and the Wawa machine all the way in the inside. That was the 93 of Cody Kinsey. They got way out of shape, but he seems to be okay. We're going to stay green. But meanwhile, battle for the lead persists. Here comes Lance Hill. He takes it away out of turn 4.
We saw Hill have quick speed early run last week, and he's showing it once again, this time battling a different teammate of his, Adam Alashire, won at Daytona, now trying to see if he can get a second win at a super speedway track. As he's going to slide up the track, Lance Hill with the crossover move as Brian M. Smith moves his way up to 3rd.
Lance Hill drifts down the 18-degree banking. He's going to get the advantage out of turn 2 for a moment, but they're going to plateau. Some help there behind. There's Brian Smith and Jesse Priest, but they're working with Alashar. In this case, they're staying higher on the racetrack. Alashar is going to have a little more to work with, but Brian M. Smith says, okay, you'll go high, I'll cut the middle, and Smith almost goes 3. He's going to give the push to the 4 as the 34 gets left out to dry.
It looks like the Zero's trying to think of which way to go because he sees that 78 blinking, and there goes Smith. Push the 4 clear, now he goes to the inside for the lead.
Brian M. Smith to the inside for the race lead. We'll see how long it lasts. He doesn't really have the help. He's going to wash up the track, and Alashar is going to have some sort of a nose out front as they come out of turn 2, still 2 by 2. Even behind them, Ken MacArthur, Nicholas Suzuki, watch them in a group of their own, but it's 2 by 2 for the lead. Lance Hill, Smith on the bottom, Alashar, Priest on the top side.
And you saw there on the back straightaway, the 78 was trying to side draft the 4, and he's going to clear for a moment, and back to the inside goes Alashire, aggressively to the right, left rear quarter panel, side drafted him, leads the lap, and now they're going to go 3 wide into 1.
Hill up top with help from Priest. Alashire going to absolutely send it to turn 1, but how will the crossover fare? Going to check up in front of the 78. Back comes the 34. Alashire is able to protect the lead for the moment. We're seeing some fantastic racing here at Michigan, and it's only the first 14 laps. Smith back down to the inside. No help, though, again. Smith going to go back to the bottom side of the 34, and again 3 wide for the race lead.
Man, Kenneth, I'm so glad I'm not on the racetrack this week. This is intense stuff. You can only imagine what it's like sitting behind the wheel of these cars, trying to decide which lane to go with, which person to help, which time to make a move, because you can make a move and lose 3 spots and suddenly be under attack from that second group behind, so it is not easy whatsoever. Definitely a good time to be in the booth.
We're watching Adam Alashar change different lines here. We saw him run the top side that last time in 3 and 4, did the same thing in 1 and 2 again, but we're seeing him kind of alternate. We're seeing him run the middle, we're seeing him run the bottom, and now we're seeing him man the outside wall. Could be some experimentation earlier. Remember, he's got the clean air, Francisco. Everybody else mostly has the dirty air, apart from changing lanes, so Alashar sort of has the ability to move around the track and still gain momentum off of it, so there's some easy experimentation working on for the Fords. They get very aggressive for 3rd. That was Smith blocking the 0-0.
Smith definitely wants to try and be in that 3rd position to try and attack the top 2. You see Freeze almost to the rear bumper of the 78. Has to catch the race car there. That's going to put him under attack for that 4th position. You see how much time he lost to the 78 down into the back straightaway. But you do mention it that we have the leader being in clean air, and basically if you're 2nd, 3rd, 4th, you want to run wherever the car in front of you isn't. That way you can have clean air on your nose and try to run a better line. But speaking of running a better line and having some clean air, Vizuzzi going all the way where nobody is towards the bottom of the racetrack, getting all sorts of clean air. He's moving his way up, and if you remember, Vizuzzi came down pit road this last caution, so he is on some slightly better tires.
He definitely is, so it's working out in his favor. He was about the middle, or the bottom actually, of 3 wide contention. You saw Colin Forrester behind them was also in the middle 3 wide, but they're ending up solving that issue out. You can see the 11 of Austin Reedy. He's gaining ground from that first incident with the 42 Christopher Bishop. In fact, he's going to make an absolute send of a move in turn 3 with Colin Forrester also to support. These guys are going off and everywhere for each and every position on track as Hill goes back to the bottom in 3 and 4. Here comes Smith for a second, but it's Lance Hill, the Subway machine, back up front.
And these guys are starting to get racy once again. If they race each other too hard, that'll bring in the likes of Jesse Prees and Ken MacArthur back into this. I'm surprised that people don't go about these sort of races strategically. If you can get a group of 3 or 4 cars up at the front and just decide to run single file, you can pull away from that second pack and start racing amongst each other and not have to worry about anybody having your draft. Everybody's being so aggressive, trying to only take on lap 18 of this race, and that's why you see right now the 4 and the 78 can't settle this out. Prees has already been invited back into that position.
Well, you got to think now at this point of the race, we're already 18 laps in. No, there was a first handful of yellows to bring us under rest, so tire wear hasn't been as exaggerated as it would be if we, let's say, went all these 19 laps green flag racing. But these guys are racing aggressively. They're trying to get as much as they can. They're going all over the track, sending in different lines. So how does this fare for the tires now? What does that say for the drivers who pitted that last time by? Does it give them more solace knowing that these guys are going 3 and 4 wide for position up front?
Well, it doesn't wear the tires out too much here at Michigan, just because you're full throttle most of the time anyway. You're going to have to lift at some point in the run. But you're more likely to wear out the rear tire here than you are the front tire. It's just so much grip with the front end of this car here at this track that it's kind of difficult to burn it off unless you're on the rear bumper of the car in front of you the entire lap for consecutive laps, and that is very difficult to do in of itself. So if you do run a different line than somebody or just try something different, you're most likely not going to burn it off. Maybe if you're side by side you do, but I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. That right rear I would be more concerned about, considering you're running full throttle.
You watch right there, that was a battle between the 79 and the 99. Ryan Steenbachers, who had a great showing and a top 10 effort last night in the ARCA Series race, also had some success in the 2-mile track as the yellow flag comes out this time by. If you're going to slow down, we'll see exactly what happened and what was the cause of the incident as everybody comes to rest, and Lance Hill should be still the race leader this time by. See exactly what happened and whether there was any situations with other drivers. We saw Chuck Monier down pit road. I'm not sure whether he was the cause of the incident per se here on lap 21. So already our 3rd caution of the evening comes out. We'll try and see exactly what happened and if there was anyone significant involved to send us under the yellow flag. As of right now, you look at everybody slowing down. Can't quite exactly see what happened there. There's the 42 slowing down on the track. He doesn't seem to be involved significantly.
I can't see anything either.
Not exactly sure what happened to bring us under yellow.
Yeah, definitely a mystery at the moment. We'll keep trying to see if we can find something, but doesn't appear to show anybody around on the racetrack. So a mystery yellow at the moment. Maybe the Iracing system detected some debris out on the racetrack.
There might have been some debris. Maybe a virtual water bottle was thrown out there. Who knows? And track officials decided it wasn't safe to stay out going upwards of 200 miles per hour on the racetrack. Meanwhile, leaders are down pit road. Francisco, of course, talked about the drivers that went down pit road the first time, but this next caution has led everybody else to go for 4 fresh tires and fuel. Even then, some of the drivers who pitted that last time by are going for service.
Yeah, we did have a slightly longer run this time, so it does make sense for him to come down pit road once again. But I would be concerned, though, because we've gone through 20 laps of this race, and they already have 3 tire sets left. If they keep it up at this rate, it's going to be very interesting as far as what happens with tire sets. But speaking of interesting, Brian M. Smith able to take the lead away on pit road from Lance Hill, who comes out in second. And it looks as though Alishire lost a good bit of ground relative to these guys, but he does seem... Actually, he must have fallen way back because there he is right there. So a terrible stop for the driver of the 4 who falls back, I believe, outside of the top 10, indeed, in the 11th position.
He was about 5 seconds slower in that entirety of the pit stop run compared to most of the field in front of him. He ends up P11 out of pit road. So your former race leader, the pole sitter tonight, is going to have some work to do near the rear of the field, or actually near the midway portion of the field, as he loses a lot of ground on that pit stop. That will put Brian M. Smith, though, all the way at the front. We saw him working for third, for second, fighting for the race lead. And this time when we go back green, is he's going to catch up here with the Iracing official pace car. He will be in control. Lance Hill going to still be in second. What a nice pit stop, though, by the 10 of Kyle Benson, Francisco. We saw him start all the way back, almost at the edge of the top 20. And a nice job he's done in the first 22 laps of this race to gain. He's up to P4.
Yeah, Kyle Benson has not exactly had a good month to remember in the month of September. He's struggled in a couple of races, not exactly had the performances that he's wanted to back it up. He was the regular season champion last season. He was a championship contender. Not exactly been that same driver this season, but we know that he is capable of just turning it on when it is necessary. He's proven that he can win in this series, so you can't count him out. But us being basically about halfway through this regular season, Kenneth, I'd be a little bit concerned for this 10 team if he doesn't start to do something different. This is a positive sign so far in the top 5 at the moment with some pit strategy and working his way up through the field. We'll see if he can hold ground. But as I mentioned, Kenneth, it is going to be very difficult for him to turn his season around. He's going to have to do something different to try and see if he can make some luck happen. And the pit stop for Alashire, he overshot his pit stall significantly and had to back up. That's what caused him to lose all that time.
So Alisar, you see him there. If you can see him faintly up at the top of that shot, that white and light blue Busch Ford Mustang, that's where he'll start the inside and near the midway portion of the field, which I guess over the first couple of restarts has been known as the Hornet's Nest, to put it simply. They've been about 3 or 4 wide for position. They have pretty much been aggressive. They don't give a lot of mercy back there. We'll see if Alashar can gain as much ground as he hopes to come back up to the front. Well, we did talk about, Francisco, the possibility of a season changing around here from Michigan at the halfway mark of this season in 4-wide cup competition for Kyle Benson. He's trying to get it happen. For Brian Smith, he's looking for a second race win as he takes the green flag and gets a handful of second lead over the rest of the field.
He gets a pretty good start there, but I'm interested in him choosing the outside there. That's definitely a good lane to restart, but you set the teammates up on the bottom there. Those Stonks Motorsports machines of Lance Hill and AJ Green, they're getting a good run on that bottom. Green not quite able to clear Benson off the corner. That's going to separate them down the back straightaway. But this is what Brian Smith wants to see. You can see him snaking on the back straightaway, trying to break any draft.
He's trying to make sure that Hill and everybody else just can't get the run they can build up, especially the fact that the 34 has helping his teammate here. Working the bottom, you see AJ Green on the inside of that bright purple and white X-Side machine of Kyle Benson. He's not going to have help, though, down the front straightaway, so that's going to hurt his chances just a little bit. That's going to give the help to Benson. Benson with a crossover to the inside of turn 1 for P2.
That was an aggressive block by Lance Hill. Definitely not something you want to do this early, but Benson gets loose on the apron, has to chase the car off the racetrack, then invites the 34 back to the inside. They stay racing for the second position. You see the 48 of AJ Green not going with his teammate, not at the moment anyways. They're going to remain side by side, and Brian M. Smith enjoying the lead right now, knowing he doesn't have to battle quite yet. But look at that mess back there. 3, maybe even some 4-wide action further back in the field as these guys are trying to find any sort of position. See Alashire in the middle of Ken MacArthur and Cody Kinsey right there, the outside on the straightaway, just absolutely pulling these guys through. They're going to lose some ground.
In the middle, 3 wide, right directly in the Hornets Nest. That's exactly where Adam Alashire just does not want to be, given the fact that he made that mistake on pit road. He's going to clear for a moment, but remember that outside lane, they've got a lot of help. There's a lot of cars up there, so if you try to make a move all the way to the inside, chances are you're really not going to find anybody there to help you or give you assistance, as again, they go 3 wide. Alashire going to help the Ford Mustang down low. It's Kyle Benson this time. Lost a lot of ground that last time by, and he's going to be stuck 3 wide in the sucker hole. That's Ken MacArthur and that Melly Yellow machine on the high side.
And no help whatsoever for the driver of the 10. He's going to lose all of that ground that he worked so hard for, Kenneth. And that's the tough part about this kind of racing, is in an instant you could lose all the ground that you so desperately wanted to gain. and it'll definitely spell trouble through the rest of the race for himself as he tries to battle it back up. Falling outside of the top 10, but going into the top 10 is Adam Allenshire. He's trying to work his way up there as we see Ken MacArthur in the top 5 for the first time tonight. Kenneth, the winner of the ARCA race at Daytona, so he is no stranger to these super speedway-esque races so far, running in the top 5.
Yeah, it's a nice pickup by the 97, and obviously got used to that old and rough surface at Legacy Daytona to get his first checkered flag in full wide racing competition. Has yet to find a checkered flag in the Cup Series yet, but MacArthur has proven to be rather quick at a lot of these tracks as he tries to fight Austin Bloom, who goes for a slide job maneuver back in turn 1 and 2, and he's going to maintain himself in P6 for now, hopefully able to defend within the top 10, but it hasn't been a lot of squabbling through the front of the field. You would expect changes for the race lead already, but it just continues to be sort of single file between the 78 and the 34. Hill hasn't really tried to make any moves. Smith has been a little defensive, but he hasn't necessarily been too defensive to the point where he's basically allowing Lance Hill to get right back either to the inside or the outside. But this could also go, Francisco, with the fact that these guys don't have too much help. There's a bit of separation back where AJ Green is. And let's say if AJ Green fights with Jesse Priest, in turn fights with Austin Bloom, that's not going to help the case of the top 2, especially in the case of Lance Hill, who's trying to make a move for first, but AJ Green has other plans.
Hill lost it off the corner and had to chase the car up the racetrack and lift it, and see how much time he's lost. He's going to make contact with Priest, the 34, up the racetrack, and look at Austin Bloom. He's going to take him 3 wide on the inside. They're going to lose so much time here. AJ Green able to get cleared for second. He's going to try and chase down your leader. Austin Bloom now moves up for third. And Priest and Hill making some more contact on the front straight where they're not happy. Contact, and around they go into 1.
Jesse Priest up in the outside wall as the 34 of Hill has nowhere to go. Caution flag waves. And we saw it coming. They were banging doors for about a full lap before this happened at the entrance of turn 1. Priest either trying to side draft or just saying, hey, I'm not happy with you right now. Why are we racing this aggressively like this? Or why are you just trying to door me here? And they end up in an incident. You see the damage extensively to the driver, the 34. And Jesse Priest, we'll see if he gets any penalties out of that. I think he's already back there. You see him with some damage, especially to the right side of his car. Smacked the outside wall. And we'll just have to see exactly what happened. Although I think, Francisco, we had a good look of exactly what happened between these two for the past lap on end. These guys were side by side. These guys were aggressive. But being aggressive sometimes gives the consequences. And as they got passed by the 27 of Austin Bloom, they get close, they make some contact, and then they make some more.
This started a lap before, Kenneth, when that 34 lost a lot of ground in turn 2, had to chase the car up the track. And that invited these guys to go on and get by him. See right there, right behind Brian Smith, goes way up the racetrack, has to chase the car up. Here comes a run by the 48. The 48 and him being side by side drags the 34 back. Now here comes Jesse Priest trying to be opportunistic, tries to take a wider line, misses the corner, and you see right there contact with the 34. That invites the 27 to go get by them. He's going to clear them as they race each other here, kind of like a Brian Vickers move from the 2009 race where Kozlowski was able to just go by. And right here, just as they go into turn 1, once again, they're going to start dooring each other once again. 34 is not happy. Right there, just meet in the same part of the racetrack, and around goes Jesse Priest, hard into the wall, both of them.
I think this is a case of what we saw with Jesse, or actually the 08 of Pete Bruni earlier on tonight's race, trying to make a side draft work, but they get too close, and you could say they weren't really happy with each other after Priest got into the 34, and then they make more contact here. But you could tell the 00 was just trying to find the lane. As soon as the 27 got by, Priest tried to look back to the inside to try and find some draft. Couldn't get it, so he tried looking back up to the 34. And again, the 34 was also on his way down to side draft Priest on his end. And they just meet together at the entrance of the first corner. Contact is made, and of course you saw the consequences with the damage on both the 34 and the 00. There's Jesse Priest down pit road. There's the 34 of Hill out of pit road with a faster pair deployed. Remember, fast repair given to each and every one of these drivers tonight, so if damage is accrued on any of these cars, they have the chance to get a clean race car on pit road, although they only have one, and I figure Hill did not really want to burn this off early in tonight's race, but I figure he may have had no choice given the fact that he had his whole front clip demolished.
Yeah, that was not ideal for these guys, and that is not what he wants to see, but what is ideal is Brian M. Smith out front in this race, controlling this race so far. We saw him start sort of not where he wanted to. We usually see Brian M. Smith qualify in the top 2, top 4, but not really what he was able to do tonight. But he did work his way up, and now he is up front when it matters most in the race. And we'll see if he can do something that we haven't really seen Brian M. Smith do too much. We've seen him win at these big tracks before, but in these true super speedway-esque type of racing, we haven't seen him been able to capture that win. We'll see, Kenneth, if he can truly do it here today. We saw him win at Indianapolis, but even Indianapolis doesn't have the kind of racing we see here.
And what's interesting is that Brian M. Smith is not only looking for a win at a type of track like this, he's looking for his first win on an oval this season. The only win that he's been able to accrue in Season 3 of 4Ride Racing Cup competition was back at Watkins Glen 2 weeks ago. So he's got the road win, but he doesn't have the oval win yet. We saw sort of the same scenario last season when Smith joined into the Cup Series field. He won at the Daytona Road Course. It was a first win, but it wasn't an oval win until he got it later on in the season. And then that's when he started to pick up a lot of this steam. So you could also say that Smith, if he can try and get his first win on an oval, could probably be a sign of things to come when we move forward the rest of the season, and especially when we bring in more tracks like Charlotte Oval, we bring in Richmond, we bring in Rockingham as a first ever track in this series. There's a lot of opportunities that Smith can have as a driver to take away race wins, but he's still got to knock off the oval side first in this campaign if he wants to get it done. He's going to be in the outside this time. He's going to choose it on the restart. Going to have some help by the 11 of Austin Riddy at row 2. And you'll see Stock Motorsports teammates in the 48 of AJ Green, the 27 of Austin Bloom, the 2 Chevys. And you see Kyle Benson, Ken MacArthur to your third row. And then, of course, back to P7, P8, Cody Kinsey, Nicholas Suzuki. It's Tyler Murray back in P9. CJ Munier in the 25 will be in your top 10. So pace car going to come off. We're ready for this restart on lap 34 of 115. How about we turn things up and crank up the volume as we go crank it up here on MaxSpeedTV. You saw a pass for the race lead happen a couple laps ago while we were under crank it up. It's AJ Green that comes to the front of the field, made the pass on the 78 of Brian M. Smith. And on the Stock Motorsports Circle B diecast Chevrolet Camaro, now commands the field at Michigan, only for a couple of moments though, because Smith gonna go right back down to the inside, but the top two have cleared the rest of the field by more than half a second. Austin Reedy, who's back in third.
And racing like this is going to exactly allow them to catch back up, but Smith gets clear immediately, trying to see if he can get back to the point, back to where he feels he belongs. AJ Green not going to give up. He's going to stay right behind him and keep that 78 points.
You watch there off turn 2, you can see the gap right there between the 48 and the 11, so this is the first time we really see any sort of large separation between the front contenders in this field as you watch a Hornet's Nest here for about the top 5. There's Lance Hill all the way with his faster pair, fresh Ford Mustang on his Subway Camaro, or Subway Mustang rather, as he tries to go to the inside there of Cody Kinsey for a moment. Kyle Benson still in a dead heat battle with the 8 of Tyler Morey for position. Things are getting dicey, but with these drivers not taking as many risks later on in this race, Francisco, could be sort of a signifying effort as to what's happened so far in this race and what they want to minimize.
I think this is one of the few times this season, Kenneth, that this trio of Bizzuti, Benson, and Murray are all inside this top 10 battling for top 5 position. We haven't seen that too much out of them this season, and Austin Reedy with a strong run in that 3rd position, but we have a yellow flag on the racetrack once again. I believe this is our 5th of the 9th, so we're definitely starting to get up there before halfway in this race. Unable to really see what has happened, but it looks like Pete Bruni with some front end damage, maybe an incident further back in the field.
We'll see it was him, but we did see Brandon Gillis possibly in trouble here. So we'll try to see exactly what happened between these drivers. It's hard to get the replay here, as it seems as though the replay doesn't necessarily give us the right angle of anybody on the track. That's Pete Bruni there, slowing down for the yellow. But then from there, you really can't see anything that happens here on track. There's the yellow flag displayed, and it actually was the 69 Michael Woolley who got into trouble on the back straightaway. And it was Brandon Gillis involved. He was the one that I believe called this right there to the outside of Jesse Prees. Lost the race car. Woolley tries to avoid, but by the time he tries to do so, Gillis is already sending it down the track, and hard he goes into the inside barrier.
Yeah, Gillis, a hard impact into that inside wall. And Michael Woolley here, just not much he could have done right there. You see right here, just Gillis aggressive to get to the outside between him and the wall. And right there, gets a little bit of an impact and overreacts a little bit, goes hard into the inside wall. It looks like he turned left there at the last second. Not sure what happened there, but you see Woolley, just an innocent bystander after that strong P2 run. His night is not done. He does have that fast repair, but definitely not exactly what he was looking to have after a strong performance at Homestead, Kenneth.
Yeah, Michael Woolley, you see him there. The Flash Camaro heading down pit road. You see a bunch of more drivers heading down. There's Cody Kinsey, we mentioned not too long ago. Kyle Benson making this interesting call for 4 tires in field. There's Ryan Steenbachers, Ken MacArthur, Jesse Prees, who we saw semi-involved in that incident there on the back straightaway. He's on pit road as well. Tyler Warner, 43 of Ricky Rosner. As you see the 69 hit pit road. And of course, like you said there, Francisco, not exactly the result or the sort of the night you want to have after what he had at Homestead and Miami Speedway. It was a solid night for him. He easily had one of the better long run cars out of the series regulars, was able to clamp up to P2 and consistently set laps all the way to the end of the race. And I'm sure the 69 not liking the circumstances right now for Michigan in the first half of the races. I believe Lance Hill and Adam Alishar made some contact under yellow.
Not exactly sure what happened there, Kenneth. I haven't exactly been looking on my end, and I'm not sure what happened there. We'll see if we can get a look on here, because that's interesting. Teammates coming together under the yellow flag. It would be the first time that we've seen something like this happen, and it may have also involved someone else here. May have been 3 cars involved in this. We'll have to get a look at Alishire and Forrester around each other as well.
No contact there. Just swerving out of the way. I think it was just making sure he didn't get into the 34. Thought it might have been some contact on the opening end, but doesn't seem to be any animosity between the two, and they'll keep themselves going. Just trying to pace around. I think when you're close to the other drivers on a slow speed, you don't want to get into anybody and create some damage on your own to another driver or to yourself, and that's exactly what Alishire was doing, just taking some evasive maneuvers. He's going to start the inside here in row number 4. Interestingly enough, Smith continues to choose the high side, but in this case, Francisco, he's allowing the teammates in the 48 and the 27 to be on the inside of row 1 and row 2, but it doesn't look like he's rather concerned about the fact that they're down there. He seems to trust that outside lane pretty well in these restarts.
And we see this in the real life counterpart of Michigan as well, that the outside lane is where the leader tends to try to restart. We see that outside has a lot of momentum on the front and back straightaways, because that's where most of the field ends up gravitating towards on the straightaway. So that's where most of the pull and push is going to be. You want to be on that outside lane. You want to defend the outside lane. You'll give someone that bottom. You'll force them to have to get out of the throttle. That's what the idea here with picking this top is. So interesting that Smith is doing it, but the more intriguing thing is that he's putting those teammates aligned on that bottom line.
He definitely is keeping a lot of trust up there, and he's going to have help from another driver. Had help from I believe the 34 of Hill. Now he's going to have it from the 8 of Tyler Murray. Hill's going to be back in row number 3. But as we've seen from Brian Smith, and especially the leaders on these given restarts, they don't necessarily have too much trouble getting up to speed. The only problem is keeping their lead for as long as possible. Because as soon as they get sucked right back in the draft, things do get tough, as the 78 will come back up through the gears. A little bit of a bobble out of the Toyota Camry, but not too much to affect his restart. He's going to go directly to the defensive side on the inside of the racetrack. We're back under green on lap 43.
And a good restart for your top 6. They're just able to break away from about 7th on back. And Smith with a clear advantage out front. Green and Bloom clear for 2nd and 3rd, respectively. Looks like Tyler Murray will get the push from Lance Hill, get up into that 4th position. We have a wreck. Christopher Bishop in the back. Looks like it was involved with somebody else. Caution's out once again.
There's the 42, I believe. That's the 73. Indeed, that is Dustin Webb. Stopped on the inside, was able to keep it out of the inside wall. You see some heavy damage on the right front of that Ford Mustang, and we saw the 42 get spun around again. This is the second time we saw Bishop involved in a crash off of the second corner. And it might have involved more drivers, and indeed causes our third, or more than our third yellow of the evening, but our second involving that 42. You see off of turn 2, that's Kyle Benson right behind him. Almost 3 wide, and Benson gets directly into him, sends him into the 73. And normally you think this wouldn't cause a caution if it's underneath the racing line. But as for the racing officials and Iracing themselves do consider this a yellow, they slow the field down as the 42 and the 73 go for a spin.
Yeah, 73, innocent bystander there. You saw the contact between the 10 and the 42 there. That's what sent the 42 spinning there. You see no rear bumper on that car, so he is definitely going to be a little bit slower, probably trying to save that fast repair. And Dustin Webb contact there. You can see that right front is bent up quite a bit. Probably want to hang on to that fast repair to make sure that you can use it much later in the race if you have to. You don't want to try and use that up too early and put yourself at a risk and having to take care of the car as if it's a baby the rest of the way when it's only lap 44 of 115, Kenneth, because having to do that is definitely not ideal, knowing that most of the field probably still has that fast repair in hand, and that definitely can hamper your approach to the rest of the race and what you actually do in the closing laps of the race, because you have to keep telling yourself, I don't have a fast repair, I don't have a fast repair, but they do, and that's not an easy thing.
Well, as of this point, there's about 5 or so drivers that do have the fast repair gone on their telemetry, so they have already used it to start this race. Most of the field, fortunately, has not used the fast repair yet, and I figure that the 42 is either going to burn this off or has already burned off that fast repair. He's still kept with the damage even after the first incident off turn 2, so as for now, the 42 is still going to be able to maintain on the racetrack with some minimal damage, as well as the 73 of Dustin Webb. Not sure if he deployed the fast repair either, but both of them surely losing a lot of track position here. As we remain behind the Iracing official pace car, we should have, I believe, potentially the lights out this time by. However, we'll see if we'll go one more lap. Fantastic thing about Iracing, the fact that on speedways 2 miles or more, they added a system where it could get cautions off and away in less time than it would usually in the sim, to get everybody down pit road, to get everybody sorted timing-wise, and then, of course, keep everybody on track, have less laps under caution so that you won't have to wait as long. And I figure that's what Brian M. Smith wants to do. Doesn't want to wait any more behind these guys and behind the pace car. He wants to go all the way up and continue to lead this race as a lap 45. What's going to be interesting here, Francisco, is that we've had some separation of yellows, I would say. We had a flurry of ones to start the race, but we're now somewhat getting solid runs in before we get yellows to fly. So how will that affect these drivers strategically in the point that we're about halfway through this race? or we're coming up on the halfway mark of this race, and these guys obviously still need to make it on fuel and tires.
Well, the runs that we have been getting have been 5 laps, most of them probably not even quite 10 laps, so it's not really that long of a run. And we've seen guys come in for tires on more than one occasion. We've seen guys come in as many as 3 times already, and not even at the halfway point. That is hurting their strategy as far as tires are concerned, because they're selling themselves short for the end of this one. So it's going to be interesting who has the tires left at the end of this race. I believe the likes of Brian M. Smith has probably come in at least maybe one, for sure once, but probably twice. And that gives them at least 3 more sets to use between now and the end of the race. So if you have 3 sets left right now, you're in a good spot. But if you have 2 sets left, you are definitely not in a good situation, especially if we get 15 lap runs and then get a caution, because you're going to have to use tires. You can't just stay out on those old tires. You're going to get absolutely swallowed by everybody if that happens. And if that continues out to here in the end of the race, even the guys with 3 tire sets are going to be right on the mark on having anything left for the end of the race. You can only imagine what it's like if you have 2 left.
Could be interesting, especially on the strategic side, and we had it as a talking point last night on fuel and tires. Given the long wins that we had in the ARCA race last night, how drivers are going to adapt to that. It's a very different situation this time around, although we are ready to go back green flag racing on lap 47 of 115. And again, just like it has been on the past couple of restarts, the leader gets the solid jump. Brian M. Smith able to clear the 48 by at least 2 car lengths, but it's all about how they're going to wrap him back in out of turn 2.
This was a better start for AJ Green, though. I must say that he is about 3 car lengths within that race leader at this point versus the usual 5, and looks like they're both able to get cleared for 2nd and 3rd rather quickly, so they're going to try and see if they can put on the charge to your leader, and indeed they're wrecking in the back once again off of turn 2.
Couple cars around. That was 2 to be exact out of turn 2. We'll see if we can identify exactly which cars they were near the back straightaway, but I believe we may have seen Bishop involved, and again he's involved in this incident off turn 2. This time Pete Bruni, the 2nd casualty in this one, and heavy damage continues to plague these 2 cars.
Yeah, this has not exactly been the run that either of these guys have been looking forward to. Not exactly part of the plan, not what you anticipate on doing. It seems as though off turn 2 that they were 3 wide with Bizzuti, and unfortunately Netcode definitely the leading cause in this one.
And take a look there. You see the 75 up top. That was the 22 of Schaefer, who almost about made it 4 wide, but it was Pete Bruni all the way through the middle, all the way to the inside. He drifts up to the track, gets in the 42, spins him around, which then tags the 22 just a tad. Luckily, they're both able to keep it out of the inside wall, which struck Brandon Gillis hard. But a watch here after the 08's trying to get back underway. The 42, they're just not happy with him. And you can't see it right now. Right about here, he's going to get into the 08 and say, hey, why'd you do that? What happened there? Definitely not happy with the driver of that 08 Budweiser Chevrolet Camaro after the 2nd time in a row that the 42's been involved in a crash off of that turn 2 segment into the back straightaway.
It just looked like he didn't know that the 08 was there when they were trying to rejoin Kenneth. I don't think he was aware that he was right there. You usually, when you are rejoining the track after a wreck, you just focus on getting back up to speed and trying to get into the racing surface. I don't think he noticed that he was there. But as far as that incident's concerned, there was no contact. He had a moment, the 08 did, and swerved up the track. But it looked like he was going to be able to stay off of him. Usually we see that sort of stuff happen, but Iracing deemed there to be contact when there wasn't, and that's part of it. That's part of the deal when we run online events such as this, such as video games as well. And it's not what you want to see, but it is part of it. You have to deal with it, and unfortunately, it is going to cost those 2, both in the track position and in damage and tire sets, of course. But speaking of tire sets, looks like we have some people coming down pit road. Some decided not to take tires, but some did.
And Tyler Murray was one of them. Craig Lautenslager also went down pit road. You can obviously bring in the bunch of the 42 and the 08, given that they were part of that incident. The 43 of Rosner was in it. So a couple more that went down pit road. I believe Michael Newbraw on the 56 was another driver to take service this time by, just trying to take advantage of the yellows that are coming out and saying, oh, well, maybe if I second guess the last caution around, I have this caution to think more about it. And if I'm going to make the decision, then why not make it now when I've got some ample time to do so, and I won't really lose too much, mostly in terms of track position, because everybody's still slow down the track, and it's mostly just going to be under yellow. You're going to restart with all of them packed in anyway. So these guys obviously going to take the risk early on. See the single file train behind most of the field. That's a lot of the drivers that did go down pit road that time by. Well, we'll take a look at your point standings just before we go back under green here from the virtual Michigan International Speedway. And this is exactly what your playoff picture looks like after 9 races going into this round. It's Colin Forrester, of course, with 3 wins to his tally. He's already locked in by a large margin. Adam Alashire, Brian Smith, they're also locked in via wins. But you see right there, plus 54 for AJ Green. It's all the pluses until you get to P10. Where you see Eric Schaefer plus 3, Tyler Murray minus 3 out from the playoff picture. So remember, Francisco, of course, a long way to go before we even start talking about championship contention. But we also did mention the fact that if, let's say, you're not having the greatest of seasons, let's say if you're back in the top 15 or even further out in the top 20 in point standings, tonight is the night to change it all and to build some momentum when we start the playoffs in a couple weeks' time.
The biggest red flags I see on that second half of the list, Kenneth, are Kyle Benson and Austin Reedy. Those are 2 big red flags right there. Kyle Benson went from leading the points to being -4. -4 is not a lot, but just the fact that he's gone like that from one season to another just shows the state at which this driver's in and what he's facing right now. And Austin Reedy -83, most likely going to have to take a win unless he can rack up a bunch of points between now and Daytona, Kenneth. It's going to be very difficult for the driver of the 11 to make up points, especially if he keeps having trouble like we've seen whenever he has been with us. It's not exactly been 100% clean for the driver of the 11. Once again, side by side, double file along this entire field as the pace car makes that left-hand turn to the safety of pit road, the safest place on this racetrack, as Brian M. Smith steps on it, surprises some of them, but he's going to go take the green flag, and the Stocks Motorsports crew is going to try and catch him. Another familiar start for Brian M. Smith, going to go exactly where that Geico restart zone was. They're side by side for P2. This time the 48 has a mirror full of the 27. A lot of separation that last restart by, but they're more linked together on this route. We'll see how much ground they can gain off the second corner as the 34 tries to hold up top. Jacob Smith also there to help Colin Forrester, making that 4th car up on the top side. They're going to make a huge run here into turn 3. We'll see if they're able to dish out a move. The 48 not going to do so, but Hill's going to send it into the 3rd corner and take away the lead. And he's going to get clear of Brian and Smith off the corner. A huge burst of momentum for the 34s. He's able to get clear. Look at that. They are 4 wide almost in the tri-oval. Aggressive racing, and indeed they are. That's Adam Alashire all the way to the inside of the track. I saw Jacob Smith in there as well. Colin Forrester manning the top side as Alashire almost pinches through the middle. Not going to thread the needle this time by as they're still 3 wide out of turn 2. This is still some of the aggressive racing we saw from the opening start of this race. Smith gonna barely fill in that hole, almost gonna get right back to the 99 as they're still side by side, but it's Lance Hill controlling the front as Alashire tries to go for 3rd. That's actually AJ Green trying to take over that 3rd spot there in that Circle B diecast car, trying to chase down the 70 of Brian Smith. Lance Hill has absolutely pulled it out. He is about 2-3 car lengths ahead of your race leader, and you have to look back another half second to find Colin Forrester in that 4th position. A hectic restart as you see Alashire gets a run in the middle of the corner. He's going to go to the inside of Forrester. Well, what I was supposed to say was Alashire was going for 4th, not 3rd. That was Colin Forrester in the 99 who held on to that 4th spot, but he may not have it for long as the 69 of Woolley going to give a little push to the 4. And that's easily going to give him enough momentum to clear Adam Alashire. Now he's going to have the opportunity to chase the drivers up to the top 3, but also to know Alashire has the freshest tires out of anyone right now in the top 5. He's only 8 laps worn on the tires. He pitted under one of the most recent yellows, so no surprise he's carving and slicing his way through the field. Now his next victims are on tap. It's easy work in the middle lane. Look at all that grip that he has on that outside lane, just able to cruise by them, and he's going to stay off the wall. Smith slides up to try and keep that 3rd position. Alashire, you have to feel, is going to take the lead here in just a handful of moments, and someone who's been following him has been that 69 of Michael Woolley, who I know has also been on pit road in that Shazam car, trying to see if he can make it 2 weeks in a row for superhero-themed cars. There's the 4 of Alashire all the way on the top side. Hill going to try and defend as much as he can, but fresh tire power matters the most here at Michigan International Speedway. Pole sitter Adam Alashire back to the front of the field. And even though he has the clean air and those behind him will start to have to draft on these straightaways, you can't help but feel that with that huge advantage that he's going to start to pull away. As you see chaos in the back as Kyle Benson swerving up to the track, trying to cover that outside lane as they were almost 3 wide. Hard racing for the back end of the top 10.
Yeah, guys are going crazy all the way from 5th on back. That was Benson who made a large swerve out of turn 2. They're 3, almost 4 wide there as the 8 of Tyler Murray makes the inside. Watch this pack all the way on the front straightaway. Look at this, and they're still clear. Colin Forrester is going to clear through the middle. Murray no help down low, but this pack is swarming here on lap 56.
Definitely getting the name of 4 wide racing here tonight. Kenneth definitely living up to the series title as we're still almost 4 wide there off of turn 2. Just a lot of insane racing between guys on older tires, newer tires, different lap strategies of when you came down pit road. And it is definitely making for some excitement from us here in the booth. You see Wooly with a huge dive on the 48 there, using some of those newer tires to see if he can capture this top 5 position. Cody Kinsey a little bit further back. Wooly not quite clear of AJ Green. They're going to stay side by side, and that's going to hurt them.
We're seeing a shift right now here, Francisco. Certainly more than any other portion of this race prior. Within the last 57 laps, under those last yellows, we're seeing a lot of drivers go down pit road, take their tire sets, hold on to it for later, and now's when they're starting to attack. You saw Alashar car to the front of the field. Guys like Willie are starting to push their way forward. Kyle Benson also moving his way forward as well. There's Tyler Warner. We haven't talked about Tyler Warner all night long in that 33 machine, yet here he is in the midst of this battle. All these guys on fresh tires now making the moves in what might be the most crucial part of this race.
And we're still only halfway into this one, Kenneth. We're not even halfway. Actually, this is the halfway lap right here. So 50% of the race has been complete. We still have another 57 laps to go of chaos. If anything, of these first couple have been indicative of. We see up front, not really able to pull away, has been the your new race leader, but it looks like they're still nip and tuck up there, battling still. It looks like Lance Hill is going to come and try and take that position away from Kyle Benson. We saw Kyle Benson storming up here, trying to see if he can use these tires to his advantage, and it looks like right there you can just see how he's able to pull up even on that inside line. But right there you see Alashire in that second position, or actually leading the race. This is the battle for second you're watching right now, as Brandon Smith is about to be under attack for 4th.
Well, actually, Benson is trying to look for second, so Hill is just trying to defend on the outside. The 48 of AJ Green, you see him in the midst of this side-by-side skirmish with the 78 of Smith, but even then some, the car just continues to plow tight. It's harder to make that inside line work unless you've got a myriad of help, or if you can make a crossover move work. See a nice push there by the 34 to the 10. This is on an attempt to catch Adam Alashar, and they're doing a lot of good work on this end because Benson is within striking distance. Remember, these are 2 drivers on some of the freshest tires in the field, and they're making it count right now on lap 60 of 115.
Yeah, what the 34 did there on the back straighter was very smart. Instead of trying to race him like he is right now, he tried to push the 10 up there to see if he can make a move on the 4 to see if that could help him get any closer. He still gets closer, as you see. Now he goes to the inside of Benson to try and retake that second spot. That invites Brian Smith to the inside of Benson. They're going to be side by side for 3rd before Smith tucks in line, trying not to lose momentum. But you can see how everybody's strategically trying to stay single file on these straightaways. And as you see, Michael Woolley now goes to the inside. He tries to make a move, and he's going all the way up to 2nd.
And a try slide job effort, but it's not going to be enough in turns 3 and 4. Almost got into the left side of the 34. And now he's going to get absolutely freight trained by everybody up top as Benson going to look for no side draft here in the inside of the 34, but still going to tuck back into 3rd. There's the 75, the 33. How about Cody Kinsey in the 93, working his way back to the top 10. And here's another driver we haven't talked about in a little bit, Francisco. Jesse Prees in the 00. We saw him up front. As the yellow flag comes out, there's a mess in turn 2. And I believe it's Ryan Steenbacher's. Indeed it is. 79 in trouble.
Not what Ryan Steenbacher's looking to have after that incredible run yesterday on that final run, going from the back to the front, all under green. An incident here in turn 2. We'll have to see exactly what happened. You have to think this started going into turn 1. You see Craig Lonslugger, just gets right into him going into turn 1, probably expecting a different liftoff point. A good save there by Lonslugger, who also got sideways.
Watch here on board with the 79, you see a creeping 13. That's also help from the 26 of Jacob Smith. Into turn 1, Lonslugger tries to dive, gets a little too close, tags into the 79. Around they both go. The 13 able to save it. The 79, though, not so lucky. Unfortunately, no extra damage to his machine, so he does get tapped. You see a little bit of a crinkle there on that left side, but doesn't seem to be too much insult to injury here. He doesn't get hit. Everybody else does a nice job of getting away from him. He spins down the track. Fortunately, keeps it off of the outside wall. So Steenbachers is still going to have a rather clean car up until this point. Obviously, the problem is going to be tires here. And, of course, the rest of the damage that he does have, he's going to possibly try and keep it fixed or try to fix it up on pit road. But it's all going to be a matter of time on what the 79 Steenbachers does. He's going to be put back on the 8-ball. From here on out is some drivers making some calls. Benson and Smith down pit road. Alishire going to fake. Well, this could be a rather crucial point of this race, Francisco, because did talk about the guys on the freshest tires in the field. They're only about 15 laps in. These guys obviously more than about 30 laps on their stint. So this is obviously the call to go for 4 fresh tires and fuel. But how does this shake up the potential pit strategy if this stays green?
This is going to be interesting. That was probably one of the longer runs that we've seen all day. And this goes back to the conversation we had earlier about tire sets. You see, the 10 leaves rather quickly. It looks like he was a fuel only. He is low on tire sets. We've seen him come in a couple of times, so he has to take fuel only. We also know that some of these other guys can take tires because they didn't earlier, and that is allowing them to be more aggressive later in the race when it matters more. So a lot of differing strategies, and we're seeing how it's able to pay off for some of them and how others are trying to take tires too early are starting to pay the consequences now by not having them at the end.
That's Kyle Benson in the 10, the first driver off to on pit road with this tire call. Obviously saw Brian M. Smith as a part. You see him right there behind the 10 machine, the 48 machine also there behind. So these drivers are shaking themselves up just a little bit. Smith did not have the best restart out of the bunch, although he's just going to be right behind the 10 and is going to be put back on track position. So this could put a reverse scenario here for the guys who did stay out because, of course, on the last restart, we went green. Saw guys like Alishire, the likes of Hill, the likes of Tyler Murray, the likes of Nicholas Suzuki. All these guys were carving their way up through the field on the freshest rubber. But now they're on the opposite end of the stick because they're going to have the oldest tires out of the top 10 and top 15, or most of this entire field. So this is going to mean a very different shakeup. It's going to mean that we're probably going to have guys like Benson, guys like Smith come back up to the field, rally in enough time, and easily take those spots away. It's not too much ground to gain for them. So there are too many cars to really plow through to get to the front on the fresh rubber, but we'll just have to see. And we'll see if there's enough of a buffer here for these guys to maintain the lead and hopefully keep themselves equalized with this field and maybe hope for some more yellows. We saw a lot of equalization on fresh tires versus old tires when yellows start to fly in constant periods. So if that does happen, it could play to the wishes of the 4 and the 34 and even the guys who have still managed to stay out on strategy, not wanting to risk a tire set this time by. Before we go green, we'll mention that there's a lot more coming up in the 4-wide racing world, and it'll start next Tuesday where we will kick off our Super Speedway week for the 4-wide racing Cup Series and the ARCA Series respectively. The ARCA Series will go first. They'll go green from big old Talladega. Coverage will start at 9:10 p.m. Eastern, October 5th, 2021. We'll kick off our spooky season here on MaxSpeedTV and KBRN with some very interesting and very scary racing for the drivers on track at Talladega. 9:10 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday for the ARCA Series action over on the Cable One Racing Network YouTube channel before we go green for Cup Series action from the same track in Talladega Super Speedway. 9:10 p.m. Eastern. You'll find it right here next Wednesday, October 6th, right on the MaxSpeedTV YouTube channel respectively as well. So a lot to look forward to in this race though, already halfway through, but this restart features a very crucial point on old tires versus new tires in the field. Adam Alishire will lead them back to turn 1.
Alishire with a sizable lead over teammate Lance Hill. We'll see how these guys hold up, Kenneth. We know that several people that pitted didn't exactly take tires, so that doesn't exactly guarantee them coming up through the field. That's actually going to hurt them because they'll be in that dirty air with older tires, and more fuel is going to really hamper how their car handles. But those on new tires, we're going to see them bound to come through, as I believe the 78 of Brian Smith has already found his way into the top 10 early on in this restart. And you see Michael Woolley trying to make use of that bottom to get into third.
You see an absolute battle here. 4 wide as AJ Green, Colin Forrester, the teammates work all the way to the inside. That's Brian Smith in the middle. We saw him look all the way to the bottom on the restart to try and get as many positions as he can, as Smith gets turned around right in front of him. Jacob Smith, that is. I believe he's going to be able to save it. Indeed, he has. What a job by the 26 of Jacob Smith, and will stay under green flag circumstances.
What a save by the driver of the 26. Just that far sideways and able to keep it under control and avoid the caution flag and keep the car in one piece. As you see a mess right there in front of the 78, he has to lift to avoid getting into the back of anyone. We're going to go 4 wide once again, almost on this front straight. We see Smith getting real close to that 56 in Newbrough, but it would just squeeze on by, trying to see if he can take the pain out of the tires. Right now is contact between the 75 and 48.
The biggest mover here arguably is the 48. Look at Green plummeting his way to the inside. No work at all to get by most of the drivers within the top 10. And now he's got the 2 right in front of him, Lance Hill and Adam Alshar, the 2 Ford Mustangs, to get by. And I mentioned it before we went green. They're on the opposite end of the spectrum, as Green will go straight for the yellow line, use the fresh tire power, and it's a new race leader up front in Stock Motorsports is AJ Green.
AJ Green able to take the lead away, Kenneth, with a power move. We saw him lead yesterday, and what happened there off turn 2, there was some contact between the likes of Tyler Murray and some of those guys up there in that third position, and that stacked everyone up behind them. And Green, with the newer tires, was going to go low anyway, but he said, thank you very much for slowing on down. I'll just go by.
And that's the magic of fresh tires here at a track like Michigan. You could easily just surge yourself ahead to the field. The same thing that Brian M. Smith is trying to do, although at a slower pace. He was stuck within the field, so it was harder for him to catch up. But now he's going to get by the 34. He'll get by the 4. There's Jesse Priest to assist him down on the inside of the racetrack. And he's going to catch Colin Forrester. Should be on his way to your race leader, AJ Green. It's so easy to make up ground on fresh rubber, and just how much it matters at a track like Michigan. And we talk about it so many times, the fact that at a track like this, you're going to have to save some tires because you're going so fast. You're trying to keep as much speed wound up in the corner with these high momentum vehicles that you're going to obviously scrub off the tires in more time if you're not saving and if you're trying to push as much as you can. But you put a car on old tires, you put a car on new tires against each other, and it matters so much. It's more than a handful of tenths of an advantage when you get fresh rubber underneath you.
But it is better to have these extra sets of tires to do just what these guys are doing at the end of the race versus doing it now, because you want to be able to do that at the end of the race. If this is at the end, you're losing these positions, but at this point in the run, you have to think, oh, there's still an opportunity, there's still cautions that can come out that can give me a chance to do just this given the right circumstances. You don't want to put your eggs in the basket too early, because we've seen in the past where that could be the end of your race.
Watch the separation right there as Smith goes for the inside. This is, of course, for the race lead on lap 70 of 115. He got by the 99 of Forrester, and now it's a job to fight the other guy on fresh tires in this field. In the 48 of AJ Green, Smith going to dial back to the bottom. Going to use the apron to the start-finish line, and I think it's Smith this time by to lead that lap. But watch that separation. Top 4 have kind of surged themselves ahead of everybody else, and they have pretty much left the rest of the field in the dust as Smith takes the race lead. Look at Jesse Priest, and look at the gap all the way back to the guys like Jacob Smith, Adam Alshar. This is the largest group here in this field, and they are absolutely getting destroyed by the guys in the top 4. Maybe an effort to save tires, or maybe just a harder way around the field.
That is not tire saving. You don't lose too much time like that trying to save tires, Kenneth. That is just the difference in the tires between those that pitted and those that didn't. Jacob Smith, we saw have a moment on the restart, but he came down pit road, so that's why he's able to recover and make up these positions and start to find himself in 5th. He'll be in no man's land. He's going to be able to pull away from some of these guys, but he doesn't have any draft in front of him like of the rest, so he is going to be stuck just basically racing against himself.
I think that's a difficult circumstance if you're a driver like Jacob Smith here, because right now you see him looking to the inside, he's snake trailing, he's trying to break the draft of the guys behind him, and naturally he's going to gain time on these guys up in front. He's most notably going to gain it on Jesse Priest, considering the damage that the 00 has on his car, but he's going to break away from everybody behind, and then there could be sort of a limbo scenario where he's not really gaining on guys in front, but he's still pulling away from the guys behind. So Smith could be in an odd situation here. Just depends on which other drivers are going to go with him, and I believe Cody Kinsey is going to follow him in his endeavors, so Smith won't be entirely alone It's just about how they can try and catch up to the guys up front that have already made themselves well clear of the rest of the field by more than 2 seconds. They were side by side at one point for the race lead, but Smith again was able to clear. So that 78 in Martin Truex colors that we're used to seeing on Brian Smith's car in this series, certainly shining back up front of the field. He's got more than 25 laps left in this race.
And look who's found himself up in the podium once again, Kenneth. It seems like every week we always find ourselves talking about him. Colin Forrester, when it matters, he always shows up towards the front end of the field. Another podium finish last week. Can he get yet another podium finish here today to add on to what has already been a really good rookie season for him? You see 3 wins, all coming in the first 3 races, so it's been a good bit since we've seen him win, which is saying a lot. Considering there's people that have probably raced a whole season and not gotten a win, so for us to be saying that about him would be something unique there. But setting off that sort of standard at the start of the season, you have to wonder, he's been very consistent, that has been very good, but he's got to at some point get back to victory lane before the playoffs start to really feel confident about his championship hopes.
Well, I think at this point, you got to give it sort of a Michael Conti situation, right? To the fact that he won early in the season. He swept the first 3 races, so that was to show as a rookie that he's got the power, he's got the pace, and he's been close to winning even after the first 3 wins. It's just he hasn't been able to put those races together and come across the line first. But the thing is that he's locked into the playoffs. He has no worry about whether he's going to make the championship and, of course, the playoffs in the top 10 in the championship run all the way to Atlanta. But it's all about how he can go from the playoffs after not winning it in a while, if he's not able to get a win anytime soon, and then keep the momentum wound up, keep sort of that motivation in, and build yourself up for what will be an ecstatic championship 5 when we head to Atlanta all the way in late December. But you can see the 99 is keeping himself within the 48 and the 78's grasp as they try to go side by side for the lead on their own right. This is going to help Forrester's case, but can also think that Forrester at this stage in a possible long run is saving his tires, and while these two go side by side, you know that Forrester may have the best out of the 3.
And Kenneth, speaking of Forrester, you have to wonder, this could very well turn out to be a season like the 2019 season that Kyle Busch had. You see aggressive racing up there for the lead. Kyle Busch won 4 races early on in the season and then had that long winless streak before winning once again in the final race of the season at Homestead to take the championship. Can we see Colin Forrester do something similar? Got all those wins early in the season, has not exactly struggling, but just hasn't been able to get to victory lane. But can he maybe turn it on when it matters most in the playoffs? We'll see. There's still a good amount of time left until then, so maybe he can capture a win. Maybe he can battle these 2 in front of him for this win if this run continues this way. As you see Lance Hill not too far behind from these guys as he's gotten by the 0 of Jesse Prees. Looks like Hill set to be on his own here as he will inevitably pull away from that 0 car, but not quite close enough to the top 3. So the top 3 right now, Kenneth, on a world of their own for the moment being. And if this run continues to stay green flag as it's so far been, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of strategy somebody pulls under the green flag.
Well, strategy may be already in the cards. You look at Lance Hill, looks like he's in contention for the top 5. He's back in P27. He is 2 laps down on the track. He pitted the last time around. Not sure if it was a scheduled or unscheduled stop to make it to the end, but Lance Hill had some concern on the last restart, went down pit road, and now you can see him already back in P27, the lowest he's been in this entire race, and already 2 laps behind your main leader. So there's trouble certainly for Lance Hill. Not sure if there's trouble in design to make it on pit strategy, but if you're 2 laps down at this stage of the race and it stays green, that 34 is not going to like the results.
Yeah, I'm actually curious as to what happened here because he was on the lead lap a couple of laps ago, and it seems as though he just came up near pit road, and it was under the green flag when he came down pit road, Kenneth. Oh, and I think I see exactly what happened. He was planning on coming down pit road, but he actually sped going into pit road, Kenneth. That's why he's 2 laps down.
Oh, poor right there for the 34. Unfortunate. And a tough break there. That's exactly why he was 2 laps down. I was wondering why, because at a track this large, you would expect probably 1 lap down would be the case since the leaders had already gone by him. But unfortunately, with the speeding penalty, it has put the 34 on the deep end here in this race. And there's still a good amount of time left, 35 laps to be exact, before we get to the checkered flag. So maybe we could see Lance Hill on a recuperation effort, but if this does stay green, then it won't be good news for the driver of that Subway machine who was doing so well to start. and unfortunately may have to live with the consequences of that pit road speeding penalty for the rest of the event forward. You see a little bit further back on the field, that's the 69 of Michael Woolley. A couple other drivers in the field as well, making their way for position. So a nice run between the 13. Also looked at the 22 of Eric Schaefer, who was caught up in a little bit of a battle of his own. He's going to lose ground on this end, but these guys running for positions within the top 15. And for guys like the 10, the 13, we've seen them kind of showing some spotlights throughout this field and even in this race, but they just have not been able to find the pace later on. And I think these guys should, if not, hope that a yellow will come out sooner than later so that they can get maybe another tire set burned off and they can be equalized in the field, and they won't really have to worry about maybe stretching it all the way to the final 35 laps of this race as the 13 goes on the inside of Michael Newbraw. That's for 13.
Yeah, one of these guys that I've been paying attention to has been Michael Woolley. He finished second last week, but we see the car that he's running here today is that Shazam car, or Flash car actually, on the sponsor of the 69. For those that are aware of comic books, Flash is a character of the DC universe, which is the opposite rival of what I ran last week at Homestead with the Marvel Studios paint. So some minds tricks going on here between these cars out here, but it's definitely a good paint to see out there on the racetrack. Another superhero-esque car with Flash on the car.
Well, we'll see if Woolley's got the speed right now, and he definitely has carried some of it. Just hasn't been able to really carve through his way through the field as he works right behind Jacob Smith. That is the likes of Adam Alishire right in front of him in the 4, Austin Bloom. Those are a handful of positions to the top 5, so Woolley does have a good amount to gain, but it does get tougher later in the run when guys starting to separate out. Of course, the top 3 are broken away from the field by a handful of seconds. Even then some. Behind them, Cody Kinsey's still a little bit ahead of this field. Jesse Prees is closer. Watch that, a little bit of a lift here by the 69.
I think
is this out of fuel?
I think he might be, Kenneth. He's out of fuel.
He's sputtering in the race car, so I think he is indeed out of fuel. You can
out.
see the revs building on the car, starting to slow down. You see Alishire also hitting pit lane. So I don't think this was a case of unscheduled, or actually scheduled pit stops here for the guys of the 69, the 4, and even then some the 34. These are mandatory pit stops because they can't make it on fuel.
Yeah, if you remember, Kenneth, they stayed out under the last caution, and they had run a pretty significant number of laps into the run. So these guys are coming in, and this should be their last stop of the day. Give or take a couple of laps here, depending on who comes in when, but these should be the last pit stops for them. That'll give them an advantage in the short run. They'll be faster than the guys up front, but you have to think that these guys pulling out as much of a gap as they did, even though they're going to be pitting later than them in about 15 laps time, they'll be in a way better position for the end of the race with the much fresher tires, because they'll just be able to do what they did to them at the restart.
And that all depends, though, if a yellow comes out, because the separation is given the fact that these guys have lapped most of the field who, at this point, need to pit for fuel, or else they can't make it to the end of this race. And then they could overcut them in such a fashion where they could easily keep the advantage, keep them trapped a lap down, and then by the time they go down pit road, they're not going to suffer too much. Maybe some track position depending on who pits when, but it's mostly going to be the same players up at the front. That is, of course, if yellows don't come out. But then if a yellow does come out, that is going to plague some of the guys already a lap down, because that's going to give a wave round to the driver who's the first one lap down, who in this case right now is the 75 of Nicholas Suzuki. You see the field coming by in 1 and 2, and that's Brandon Banks right behind him. So complicated scenarios here to look forward to our last 30 or so laps in this race. We'll take a short break, but you won't miss a thing here on MaxSpeedTV. It's the 10th round of the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series. You're watching it live from the Michigan International Speedway. It's Brian Smith still at the head of this field.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iracing.com.
Back live from the virtual Michigan International Speedway, the 10th round of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series, as leaders are now hitting pit road. Just before we were on break, you saw a couple of drivers that mandatorily need to go down pit road because they were running out of fuel. This time, the leaders are coming down. It was a swarm of lap cars trying to gain their laps back. It was a couple of the cars that went down pit road before your leader did. Colin Forrester, AJ Green, Austin Bloom, and Jacob Smith, to name a few. You see Forrester there out on track. Concerned about possible speeding penalties, but no penalties issued to the 99, so he's okay. But Francisco, this is going to be an interesting last 20 or so laps because we got to the point where drivers needed to go down pit road, and the ones that stayed out the last restart we did have. But now the main guys are coming down pit road, and everybody in a swarm of cars is aiming to take their laps back and go for position as Smith comes out of pit road.
Watch this. This pack is way up to speed. They're going to go by him, and in this pack is what is going to be the net race leaders. You see Smith is coming down, exiting pit road. He actually might get away with staying in front of them as they're going to be aggressive here. You see Forrester and Green trying to work together to get by these guys. They're all on older tires than he is, but they also put out a lap earlier than Brian and Smith, so they have a minor disadvantage from that aspect. Forrester gets clear of Jesse Preece. AJ Green still a little bit side by side, but not exactly being side drafted by them. You see Cody Kinsey behind them with a big run.
Cody Kinsey aiming to make something happen. There's the 48 of AJ Green. We talked about it under break that most of the positions that were probably going to be traded here on this last stop was going to be at least between the top 3 or the top 4. And this is going to matter near the end of the race as AJ Green gets a mirror for the 99. Forster giving him the absolute shove. The teammates trying to work together to catch Smith into turn 3, but Green's able to clear for P2.
And that's what it's got to take, Kenneth. You got to work together like that on these straightaways because that's how you can just gain a massive amount of time, regardless of whatever tire disadvantage you may have, because that's 5 miles an hour or so that you can gain on the straightaway alone. And we know that 5 miles an hour with this package is a huge amount to gain.
There's going to be a lot to gain here from Michigan, but now is going to be the true test for these teammates is to try and catch the 78 of Smith. He was able to escape all the guys that unlapped themselves and were trying to get their positions back. He's trying to escape the 2 right behind him that are looking for position with 20 laps to go. So now this puts it into the hands of all 3 of these guys on what they can do if it stays green for the long run. If we mentioned last night's race, the ARCA Series race here at Michigan on the Legacy version, we had a similar situation like this. It was the final 20 or so laps, 25 laps. These guys went green all the way to the end, and it mattered on tire saving. Brandon Banks had the strategy that looked like it was going to be enough to win the race, but Sanchez saved enough of his grip under the rubber, and he was able to push past the 88 and win the race, and that was his third race of the season. Could we potentially see a similar effort out of the 48 and the 99? Save now, but within the next 19 laps, be able to push later on.
Well, it's going to be difficult because they have one lap less better tires than the 78 does. The 78 has the upper hand here. And we've seen traditionally Brian Smith is really good at tire saving, and give him one lap better tires, and you have to say that it's going to be pretty difficult. That's why I said they're going to have to work together on these straightaways to catch up to Brian Smith, because it's not going to get done in these corners, not in the immediate terms anyway. You see Green trying his best to keep up, but it's going to be very difficult. Smith moving down just a little bit, trying to break a little bit of draft without turning too much of the wheel. He knows that with this draft that it's not out of the woods yet, that the 48 can catch back up.
It's definitely still in the cards. So 0.6 of a second here between Smith and Green. As we come for the start-finish line, it's a full second between the 70 and the 99. And they have already cleared everybody from third on back. Did mention the drivers who unlapped themselves. Does include, of course, Adam Alashire, includes Craig Lonslarg, includes Tyler Warner, includes Eric Schaefer, Brandon Banks. It includes somewhat these guys right here battling for P4, Cody Kinsey and Jesse Prees, who are kind of stuck in their own scenario. Sort of the man in the middle, as you would say, between the drivers who needed to pit fully and then the drivers who were well off for this last stop in the top three. These guys are just stuck right there in between those two groups specifically, and they're able to keep themselves in a fourth and fifth, although they continue to battle for position on fresh tires. They're around the same lap that they pitted as we come across for 16 laps to go. It's still Smith in contention, but it's all about what AJ Green and Colin Forrester do. So keep pace with them, not let them walk away too quickly, and then try to reel them back in the final 15.
It's not going to be easy, though, because it's very hard to save tires here and not lose pace. It's just you're on the throttle so much that you lose too much time getting off of it that you're not going to be able to make it back with the tire difference, especially as we previously discussed with Brian Smith pitting a lap later than these guys. That does make it challenging to try and save better tires than your leader when he already has the advantage to do so. On top of the fact that he is a very good tire saver in of himself, you see that lap, about another 10th and a half gained by Brian Smith just that lap. So it's looking really good right now for the 78 with that clean air. It would take a yellow to come out for the 78 at the moment to stop him from winning this race.
Last time by, he was a full 10th quicker than AJ Green, a 39.441 comparative to Green's 39.587, and then it's a full 0.3 from him to Colin Forrester. Forster's at a 39.768 the last time he took to the start-finish line here for Michigan. So it looks like Smith could be on the way to taking his second race win in the Season 3 campaign, but he's got 14 laps left to consider it done. He'll approach some lap traffic up ahead the road. It won't be too significant of a factor at this point in the race. And Smith still looking to extend his gap, as most of the field has already accrued themselves either in separation or in somewhat smaller clusters with the 79, the 27, the 8. They're all together, but most of the rest of the field has found their own groove, has found their own groups, has found their own rhythm, and they're just trying to click off the last 14, maybe either in hopes that a yellow comes out or in the hopes for the top three that nothing happens and we stay green.
It's been a struggle once again in the closing parts of the race for drivers like Kyle Benson and Craig Lonslarg. They're outside the top 15 right now. Just not been the night that those guys have been looking forward to. We've seen better nights out of them, and doesn't appear that tonight is going to be one of those nights that they're hoping to have. With Talladega being next week, Kenneth, you have to wonder if maybe a wacky race as Talladega usually ends up being, if that's the place where ironically, their luck turns around.
It could be. I mean, Talladega, such a track that really anything can happen. You can't really put a prediction in that track, because you can make a prediction and all of a sudden it's going to change in a matter of moments at a track like that when you're going super speedway racing at upwards of 195 miles per hour. So, but that does put in the factor that these guys still got some time. We mentioned the second half of the season, you could build momentum tonight, but that doesn't mean that this is the only race that you could do so. You can try to get a win at the next couple of tracks, Talladega being one of them, Charlotte Roval being one of them. Remember, Kyle Benson was the winner at the Charlotte Roval last time we visited that venue. Then we have the Charlotte Oval right after. A couple drivers are good at that track as well that are looking for a spot into the top 10 in the playoffs in a couple weeks' time. You've got Rockingham as the first ever track in this series. It's a wild card, as many could say. So there is definitely still opportunities left, but those opportunities are starting to dwindle quickly. And if those guys beneath the top 15 in points can't get their momentum rolling near the final races, then clear as day, they could end up just outside of the top 10 and not making a chance for the Full Wide Racing Championship in Season 3 at all. You look down, 1.6 seconds to AJ Green. Gap is increasing. Smith continues to put it on the rest of the field, and it looks like as we come to 10 laps to go, Francisco, Smith just needs clean track, no yellows, green flag circumstances, and he'll be a two-time winner this year.
And that's a tough spot to be in, Kenneth. Even though he does have that win this season at a road course, he knows that a caution can keep him from winning this race. At the road course, it was just a matter of keeping the car clean. You have the added factor of having to think about maybe yellow coming out. Last week, that was definitely something in the back of my mind, so I know exactly what he's going through. And when you look at packs like this, it's hard not to feel that that could happen.
It's a large pack to develop. We talked about some guys in smaller clusters. This has turned into a large one rather quickly. You looked at Jacob Smith a couple laps ago. He was behind this group here. Brandon Banks, Eric Schaefer, Nicholas Vizzuti, and what now seems to be Jesse Prees and Cody Kinsey. Prees has lost a lot of ground on this last run with 10 laps to go, and it's given the opportunity for guys like Banks and guys like Vizzuti to crap these positions up. Top 5, get it locked in, get some solid points out of Michigan. Going to Talladega with probably a bigger cushion than they anticipated, especially given the way that this race has changed hands, whether it's been caution-filled or whether it's been full of green flag scenarios. It's been a lot to unpack as Vizzuti goes to the inside. This is going to be for P4. Not going to clear him just yet. Kinsey's going to have the run up top, and they're still going to be side-by-side for a moment. Vizuti's barely going to clear. Look at the crossover by the 93 as the 88 goes way to the inside and hard into the inside barrier. Upside down he goes. The question is, does the caution come out? The answer is yes. What Brian M. Smith was not looking for was a yellow, and it has come with 8 laps to go.
Just as we were talking about that was the last thing he wanted to see, Kenneth, and that is exactly what happens. 8 laps left, and he is not happy. Brian M. Smith is not happy. We saw right here, the 88 seems to have gotten loose, and then the 26 not staying off, and a vicious impact to the inside wall. You can see the momentum just carried him to go upside down. We'll ride on board with this, and we're going to see that this is not going to be that pretty. See the 26 getting to run on better tires, just gets right behind him. 88 gets loose, 26 not lifting, just that little slide that can't correct, and upside down sort of reminds you, well, maybe not the upside down part, but hitting the wall that hard is definitely reminiscent of the Xfinity crash that Kyle Busch had at Daytona, where if the car was in a slide, but it was so slight that you can't correct it.
And it didn't look like he was trying to correct the car. He went straight for the inside barrier as you see the 88 stopped on pit road. The field, though, will come down. Kyle Benson and a couple others will stay out. We'll monitor them, see if they second guess. But it's Brian M. Smith, leader on the track. At the moment of 8 laps to go, he'll come down pit road. This is not the scenario he wanted to be put in, especially given the racing we saw fresh off of the restarts with drivers on fresh tires. But this is the most crucial part of the race, Francisco. The exit off pit road. Gonna matter here. We'll see what the 78 checks out.
Colin Forrester did take a fast repair there, so he now has a clean car. But I think about 7 cars here stayed out. A couple maybe some lappers, but some were definitely lead lap cars, and that's going to play a factor as the race off pit road. No real changes inside that top 5. Most everybody holding station there, but they're going to restart in the middle of the field. Though they'll have better tires, Kenneth, they won't have a lot of laps to use them, and that's the crucial part.
It's P7 for Brian Smith out of pit road. There's Colin Forrester. He actually gained 1 on the 48, so he was just kind of tallying back the teammate there in the Circle B diecast Camaro, but he actually gets the spot over him on pit service for what possibly will be the final time for them tonight. But this is the group they have to go through. Cody Kinsey, we saw him in that group just in front of Brandon Banks before that caution came out. Jesse Prees is in the same predicament, but it's in stay-out effort for the 13 of Launsberger and the 10 of Kyle Benson. Francisco, we talked about them all night. You talked about their positions just before the yellow came out. This is a risky call here. It's a high-risk, high-reward scenario, but if you're this deep in the points, if you haven't had a good night, this is the opportunity to go out front and at least try to get something positive out of it.
The season has not gone their way, and they were running outside the top 15, closer to that 20th position. If they come down pit road, they exit 20th anyway. So better to give themselves a shot with 5 laps to go, even though they'll be at a massive disadvantage. But a shot is a shot. We saw Jake Roel was able to stay out at Homestead in the ARCA series a week ago, and what do you know, it went his way. All the overtimes were used, the race ended under caution, and he won the race, staying out. We thought it was a questionable call, but it did work out because everything went in his favor. If something similar can happen here, I hope it doesn't for the sake of the race here, but if something similar does indeed happen where we have a bunch of cautions, the people on tires can't really make up ground, that is going to be at the benefit of those that stayed out.
It definitely will be, and it's going to be a larger benefit for these guys, because if we do get in the scenario, a lot of these guys haven't won this season, and talked about it in the ARCA race last night as well. Joe Sanchez was the winner of that one eventually. He had won a couple times before in ARCA competition this campaign. There hasn't been a win, though, in the Cup Series for Kinsey. Hasn't been a win in the Cup Series yet for Prees. There's been wins last season for Kyle Benson, but he has yet to reach victory lane either. Neither has Lon Slugger, who was the winner at Iowa earlier last season. Christopher Bishop, he's back in this race. He hasn't won this campaign either. Look at the 40 of Scott Baker. We haven't said his name all night long, yet he's got a shot. But remember, they have to defend against everybody on fresh tires, who's right behind them, ready for the charge. As we come across to the start-finish line, it'll be 5 laps to go. Pace car is off. Kinsey's already on his way. What happens in the final 5?
Looks like Benson from the inside and makes a position before start-finish line. That's going to get reviewed by admins, it seems. And Colin Forrester, aggressive, trying not to waste time. He is ahead of Brian M. Smith, crucially, so he is ahead of the person on his strategy. But here comes Kyle Benson trying to take...
Kyle Benson out of the inside of Cody Kinsey. This is for the race lead. Remember, Forrester's on fresh tires. He's going to have all the momentum, almost 3 wide. He almost looked to the inside of Benson, just did not have space to make it happen. But under fresh tire power, he's going to go to the inside as Schaefer takes 4.
Schaefer out of nowhere goes to the outside. He's going to battle for the lead as they're 4 wide. Smith sideways saved it in the trial. Well, look at this, almost 5 wide.
They're almost 5 wide as the leaders make contact. Forrester to the outside wall. Big crash in the front of turn 1. And again, we'll go under yellow. But most of the contenders on fresh tires have been taken out. Alishire's in it. Steenbacher's in it. Eric Schaefer's in it as well. And they came careening back down the track. And the field heads for the big smash 'em up in turn 1. As we get the caution with 4 laps remaining. 99 is completely bent all over. And we'll look to see how it started. It is not going to look good from any camera angle. This is for the lead to turn 1. Schaefer tries a side draft, gets aggressively into the 99. And as soon as the 99 comes back across the track, there is nothing for anybody to do in a large pack like this. There's the contact. There's the slam. And it's not a pretty ride. There's Warner gets contact with it as well. Jacob Smith goes hard into the wall as he pretty much saved the car out of turn 4. And it's hard to describe this incident without getting rather wacky with words. Take a look at it again.
Yeah, this is interesting to say the least, just how this all unfolded. 22, very aggressive on the side draft, but did not expect for him to go down that quickly, and was gonna make contact with the 99 there, with how fast he was going down the racetrack. And then you see right there, Smith taking avoiding action, turns right into the 48, and that's the 48's race.
Well, the 48 got stuck into the inside wall, sort of similar to what we saw, well, without the wall grabbing, similar incident to Grant Enfinger's big crash in the Truck Series a couple years back, just slamming that inside wall. With Smith that tried to get away from the incident between Forrester and Schaefer. Did not quite acknowledge that the 48 was still underneath him, kind of give him a little tap, but at that speed, even the smallest hits can send you way out of shape, and for the 48, no saving that car there, unfortunately. Goes for the wall on his day. Certainly done. Really, out of the drivers that made it through, include Smith with a rather clean Toyota Camry. Kinsey survives. Vizzuti also survives this mess as well. But then you look at a couple damaged race cars, Tyler Warner, Austin Bloom. They also had a piece of this, trying to avoid as Colin Forrester came back down the track. You can see the damage as well on the 10. Large crinkle on the front end. And everybody else behind them has either a clean race car to get by or a completely torn up car that did not make the cut. And with 3 laps to go, as I believe we're heading for green-white checkered territory, Francisco, I don't think anything is certain. Nobody is safe in the final 3 laps.
Well, I think the crucial thing to point out here, Kenneth, is that almost everybody involved in that incident had fresher tires. And Brian M. Smith, with the fresher tires, is going to restart in the lead. Almost all of these guys immediately behind him stayed out under the last yellow. So you'd have to think advantage 78 going into this next run here for overtime.
We're most likely going to get to overtime here from Michigan. As Smith will hold on. We're going to wait to see anybody else if there's any other calls. Presuming pit road is not going to mean as much on this restart because either everybody's already made the call or everybody just has enough damage and they don't want to risk losing the amount of track position that they can hold on to in the final lap. So we should get it 1 to green. Lights should be out on the pace car. It's going to be Smith and Kinsey, your front row. Austin Bloom, Nicholas Vizzuti, your second row behind the leaders. Tyler Warner and Kyle Benson will end up in the 3rd row back to P6. It's Tyler Murray, Michael Woolley, Michael Newbraw, and Ricky Rosner who enters the top 10 tonight in the final 3 laps. Francisco, know that this is chaotic off restarts at Michigan. Do we expect anything but chaos? What do we expect here?
Yes, chaos. Lots of it.
Do we embrace it at this point of the race, or?
I think we accepted the fact that it's with the super speedway racing. It also gets us prepped for next week because I have no doubt that this is definitely going to be similar to next week.
This is going to be wild. Talladega next week. If we're seeing chaotic racing here, who knows what's going to happen over at Lincoln, Alabama, the virtual side 1 week from today. But remember, we still have to get a winner out of all of this. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter where they come from. Doesn't matter if they won before or not. We're still going to get a checkered flag holder here from the Irish Hills of Michigan. But it's a winner this season in Brian Smith, who holds control over the field. He's led arguably the most laps tonight out of any driver in the field. He was knocking down the final 10 when the yellow came out with 8 laps to go. He was able to survive that last huge crash into turn 1. Can he survive the chaos that'll encompass him once we reach back to turn 1 on this restart? Pace car going to come off, will go green with exactly 2 laps to go from Michigan. It's help from the 27 to the 78. Bit of chaos on the inside lane, a couple rows deep, but Smith going to throw the field off. We're back under green in the final 2 laps.
Smith well out ahead on this restart, able to get ahead of Kinsey. Kinsey single file with Vizzuti and Bloom, but those guys, as the caution's back out.
Caution out again. It seemed as though it was a crash behind them before we could even get things started. There's damage there to the 88, but not sure whether he was involved in this instance. I believe it was the 13. There's heavy damage to the front of that Toyota Camry. We did not see that before. And he was slow on the racetrack, losing some spots. So I believe, in this case, victim was 13, Craig Lownslager. Indeed it is. He spun to the inside grass. And this is off the restart, Francisco. We saw Ryan Steenbacher's was getting out of the way to check up for the rest of the field, but it happens behind them. They checked up largely. The train stacks. 25 gets into the 88, tags into the 13. Multiple cars go spinning.
Yeah, that's not the best of things to really happen. Normally, when you're at the back of a restart like this, coming to the green flag, the stack-ups are pretty normal, but you want to avoid doing stuff like this. That really runs the patience thin out of those in the admin booth and those drivers up front when there's incidents like this going on in the very back.
And it seemed as though they were stacking up, so what we were seeing at the inside lane with Ryan Steenbacher's pushing out of the way, that was not because he was illegally trying to gain position. It was just because he was trying to escape hitting the car right in front of him on the restart. And unfortunately for the guys near the rear of the field, they were not able to slow down in enough time. They stacked up like dominoes, and they just hit each other. That's what collected the 13, collected the 25 of Munier. And just like that, we're back under yellow with 3 laps to go. So we are well into green-white checkered territory. So before we go green, We'll run this down for you before we end things here from Michigan International Speedway. We will go green just like we did that last time by with 2 laps to go. We'll try to get a winner out of all of this. We'll try to get to the white flag. If the leader does not cross the line for the white before yellow comes out, then we'll re-rack them and do it all over again. We have a handful of attempts to get it done. If we do get to the white flag, though, whatever happens will happen, and whoever comes across the line first will be the winner here tonight from Michigan International Speedway. We had a situation, though, at Homestead a couple weeks back in the ARCA Series race where if we do use up all of our green-white checkered attempts, that means whoever's in the lead at the time of yellow and at the time of that last yellow specifically will be behind the pace car, will take the checkered flag, and will win the race. That's exactly what happened with Jake Roel. He stood up at the front of the field. All the attempts are burned out. Finished the entire race under yellow flag circumstances with Barney the flagman holding the checkered with the pace car still out. And Roel took his first win of the season. But we still have some attempts to get by Francisco, and considering what's going to happen, or what already happened on that restart, these drivers are very antsy to get started. They're very antsy to get in as much as they can. And after restarts in these cars, it does not get easy to get through the field.
Yeah, it gets progressively harder, but still you have to feel confident in the ability of Brandon Smith, not just in his ability, but also the tire situation that the field finds itself in. There's a buffer between himself and somebody with tires and or no damage to their race car. So Smith has a clean car and the newest tires of anybody in that top 4 or 5. So definitely advantage Smith. All he has to do is not make a mistake.
Haven't seen many mistakes out of Brian M. Smith all night long. And again, looking for his second race win in this Season 3 campaign. Kinsey has not gone to victory lane. We see a bunch of drivers that have not yet held checkered flags this season or in the entirety of their 4 Wide Cup Series career. This could be the game-changing moment for them to lock into the playoffs. Get a heap of momentum, but it's all if they can beat that bright orange and black number 78. We'll double them up. It'll be Smith at the head again on the outside. Cody Kinsey on his bottom. It'll be Nicholas Suzuki, Austin Bloom to P4 in row 2. Tyler Warner will cap up the top 5. And it will be most likely Kyle Benson on the outside of him in row 3. Then Michael Woolley, Tyler Murray will occupy back to row 4. It'll be Ricky Rosner. And then behind him, back to P10, it will be the driver, the 56, Michael Newbraw, that final driver in that 10th spot. We've seen many things happen in Michigan. Anybody in the top 10 still has a chance. Really, anybody, frankly, has a chance here for Michigan. We'll go green with 2 laps to go. And we're just waiting for the pace car to make that dreaded left back to the safety of the pit lane. 78, 93, your first 2 at the front. They'll take to the long front straightaway here at Michigan International Speedway. Again, a potential late start by Smith, but he's going to come up through the gears smoothly. We're back under green. 2 laps left. We'll see if we can keep it clean.
And another good start for your race leader. He's able to get ahead of Kinsey and Vizuti and Bloom, who all get single file once more, trying to see if they can work together to catch up to the 78, but it's going to be difficult with the tire situation, Kenneth.
Brian Smith's got the fresh rubber compared to everybody else. They're hoping that the yellows have equalized things out as they smack the wall. They wreck for the inside wall, but do we get the yellow with 2 laps to go? Yes, we do. Caution flag waves again.
They were bouncing off each other off turn 2 once more, and I believe this is going to be our last attempt at an overtime finish as you see these guys trying to catch up and settle down after the incident. Oh, there was some contact here off turn 4 there under the caution flag, it seems, but Craig Lonslonger potentially with some more damage to his car.
And we were trying to look at the incident there. There was some cars that collected themselves together after the yellow flag came out, but most notably the center of the wreck was the 69, and we'll try to get a good gauge. It was the 26 of Jacob Smith that actually went sailing for the inside wall. This is off turn 2. 69 tries to get a run on the 8. 8 slides up into him, gets into the 26. And then out of the shot, you see the 26 go. Everybody else seems to be fine up at the top of the racetrack. That's where the yellow comes out, though, Francisco. It's him coming back across the track. We'll get a look at the 26 here in just a moment. But he went hard into the inside wall, much like we saw Brandon Banks do earlier in tonight's race. And just like that, nowhere to go. Actually, didn't hit the wall. Was able to save it, but slides back up to the track. What a job by the 13 to get around him.
Yeah, it looks like he kept his foot in the throttle to keep it from going on the inside wall. We'll see if we can get an onboard of him right here. You see the incident happen right there in front of you. Murray towards the 69. 69 comes off the wall. Right here, he's on it, trying to keep it from going into the inside wall, but too much to the right while keeping the throttle there is what causes the car to lose control. Because if he would have turned back a little bit to the left or eased up just a little bit on the throttle on the latter portion of that save, that could have resulted in a car going in the right direction, but unable to do that, just trying to make sure to keep that he didn't hit the inside wall. Right here, if you're a long slug, you have to make a decision. He's coming back up, decided to go low where he wasn't going to be there anymore, and ended up working out.
Nice job of avoidance by the 13 of Landslager, who's just aiming to keep his race afloat. And then there was some contact there later on in the going as Landslager hits for pit road. He's going to try to get some extra damage fixed, but the leaders will come by. And we will indeed get a final restart here. So if we do get a yellow before we reach the white flag, that means this race will end under yellow. And if it stays like it is right now, Brian M. Smith should be the winner. But that is after the attempt is burned out. We can still get a finish here in the final few laps. But I think if there's anything that made a statement there, Francisco, just from turn 1 and 2 alone, is that what you mentioned there right as they were coming into the first corner. It was the fact that Smith has the advantage of fresh tires, so he is able to use it more than really anybody else in this field. And that's exactly coupled with the good starts that he's had all night long is just going to be able to clear him further across the field coming out of the first 2 corners where usually everybody behind Smith gains a run and tries to pass him.
It's not going to be easy. It's not going to exactly be easy, but he has the advantage, which we've talked about in every single restart. As you see, he's going to choose that outside. I don't know if the lights will go out this time or not. They don't, so we still have another lap. Actually, no, they did go out, so this is going to be 1 to green. This is the last opportunity these drivers have, and Tyler Warner has found himself into that 4th position. I do think he has similar tires to Brian M. Smith. If he can get ahead of the likes of Kinsey, he can try something, but it's going to be very difficult because we've seen Smith just have great restarts as he's laying off behind the pace car. He probably would want to catch up here, but everybody behind them is either with damage or slightly older tires, so they're going to be scrambling, trying to battle for a podium spot, while Smith will say, thank you, I'll go and take this win, because assuming he gets a good launch, caution or not, he's most likely going to win this race.
Just needs to put himself in the right place, and if you mention guys like Warner, if he's in here with similar tires, could cause some beef at the front of the field, and we could have ourselves a good battle for the race win. Cody Kinsey, though, to note, he's on 29-lap old tires, so out of mostly everybody in the field so far in the top 10, he's got the oldest set, but he's been able to manage himself well on restarts, so Kinsey has held his ground fairly well. Maybe not so for the race win, but if he can get himself in a good point situation, a points day out of Michigan, that'll be great for him and his push for the Season 3 Full Wide Racing Cup Series playoffs. But that's if he can hold on to the final restart, and if he doesn't get swarmed by everybody else, focus still lies on your race leader, Brian M. Smith. He will bring the field back to the start-finish line for the final attempt at a green-white checkered here from the virtual Michigan International Speedway. Back up the gears we go. Solid start from the outside lane. Smith able to clear. Warner trying to get away from Kinsey.
Warner got a good launch, but he has no help. The inside lane does, and that puts Kinsey back up to 2nd with a disadvantage on tires and damage. Warner's boxed in. This is screaming 78 victory at the moment because they're side by side for 2nd. This is exactly what he wants to see.
There's Rizzuti. He's got help from Tony Kivet. Michael Newbraw is going to aim to take it 3 as Tyler Warner just aiming to give help from the 93 of Cody Kinsey, but they keep looking at the Tracker Boats Toyota Camry. Brian M. Smith, who will come off turn 4. He will take the white flag, and the final lap around Michigan, we will get a finish under green flag circumstances. They're 3, almost 4 wide to the front straightaway as they come for turn 1.
And as they go to turn 1, they're 3 wide for 2nd, almost bouncing off each other as we now start the final lap. And what a race it's been for Brian M. Smith, Kenneth. He got out to the front after not having the qualifying he was hoping for. GM's still trying to stay safe by breaking the draft, but no concerns for him. He's going to go into turn 3 with a clear racetrack.
He's going to come into 3 and 4. No competition in sight. Half a second back to the 75, Nicholas Fizzuti. And after almost a flawless race all night long, the oval win for Brian M. Smith comes here at Michigan. Watkins Glen, Michigan to follow. Winner, Brian M. Smith. Nicholas Fizzuti comes home in second. A restart for the ages. Actually, he comes home third. Newbraw beats him to the line. Cody Kinsey on the oldest tires for fourth. And how about Lance Hill after a speeding penalty earlier in the race that put him 2 laps down? He ends up in fifth to capture some well-needed points for Stock Motorsports. But it's Brian M. Smith Francisco who held on, kept his composure in the final laps of this race, cleared the field by a good margin, and now he gets to celebrate on an oval for the first time this season.
You can see that coming with a car that had little to no damage on it, and the freshest tires of those up front. You had to think that they were going to get battling for that second spot, and ultimately it was going to result in the 78 winning the race as he actually gets hit mid burnout.
Well, he's trying to celebrate. Doesn't matter what damage he gets after now, because he's already a 2-time winner this season. We saw Joe Sanchez get his 3rd in the ARCA race on Tuesday. It's a 2nd for Smith, who follows in the same tracks of last season's coverage where he won at the road course in Daytona and then got his 2nd race of the season and his win at an oval. And then it was a tear off from there as the 78 comes to a stop. There's Jacob Smith, the other Smith, to burn it down with him, celebrating. And Smith will continue the celebrations here from the Irish Hills in a chaotic last handful of laps. We went 10 laps over schedule. We were supposed to have 115, but it's a full 125 to consider ourselves done here tonight in round number 10. Let's take a look at your full field results, see exactly where everybody finished after the end of 3 green-white checkered attempts. Brian M. Smith, your winner, the 2nd time he takes the checkered flag in this campaign after the win at Watkins Glen. Michael Newbraw, fantastic effort all the way to the end. After having a stealthy race, he will finish in P2. P3 will belong to the 75, Nicholas Fizzuti. Cody Kinsey on the oldest tires in the field will end up P4. Lance Hill comes back from the earlier mishaps and the speeding penalties to P5. Tony Kibbett will come across the line in P6. Ken MacArthur will end up back in P7. Jacob Smith ends up in P8. CJ Munier will come home P9. 10th will belong to the 43 of Ricky Rosner. Back to 11th, you'll find Austin Bloom in the 27 machine. Tyler Warner will end up in P12 behind him. Pete Bruni will end this race 13th. 14th will belong to the 42 of Christopher Bishop. Kyle Benson, after a struggle-filled race all night long, he's going to hold on to top 15 territory. Tyler Murray will come home P16. 17th will belong to the 13 of Craig Lautenslager, followed by Ryan Steenbacher's Michael Woolley, Scott Baker in the 40 for your top 20. We'll look at the drivers that end this race from 21st on back. AJ Green, unfortunate crash near the end of the race, hard into the inside barrier. He did not finish this one here in the green-white checkered territory. He ends up in P21. Brendan Banks, a hard crash on his roof to bring our caution with 8 laps to go. 22nd, it will result for him. Adam Alshire, pole sitter tonight. Just unfortunate circumstances near the end, and a crash takes him out. P23, he'll end. Dustin Webb will be P24. Jesse Prees will cap off the top 25 before you'll find Colin Forrester. Got into a crash late into the race as well. 26th for him. 27th for Eric Schaefer. Brandon Gillis, Austin Reedy, Chuck Munier, your final drivers in the top 30. Pretty much everybody here from the virtual Michigan International Speedway. Well, we are in victory lane, and we can talk to the driver who leads the most laps and, coincidentally enough, leads the amount of laps that is his car number. Brian M. Smith in the 78 machine, able to get it done in the final laps here from Michigan. We'll bring Brian in from victory lane. And Brian, I think it's a similar path you took last season. Road course win to start it off. You finally get the oval win, but what a final handful of laps that was in green-white checkered territory. How was that for you? How were you able to walk through and get it done?
Yeah, guys, it was all about that call at the end to take tires after that long green flag run, which I was feeling pretty confident if it stayed green, but that's exactly why I saved a set of tires. Just trying to maneuver through the mayhem at the end there, and the 22 yeet in the field, but it was fun. Wish it would have been a little cleaner at the end, but still a good time.
And I want to walk through the final 10 laps of this race. It was going for green territory. It looked like you had a good amount of lead over AJ Green and Colin Forrester respectively. Looked like if it was going to stay green, you were going to have the win in the bag anyway. But caution flies out, and then all of a sudden the chaos ensues. What is that mentally for a driver, especially you, given the fact that you had clean air and in the race lead, you were looking to go for that checkered flag. You were waiting for Barney to put it out already, but then instead you look to the front straight away and he's waving the yellow.
Yeah, like I said, I was confident with what I had to do. I knew I had to take the tires. I didn't know how many would stay out. I know a lot of guys burned that set earlier on in the race, and I'm glad I didn't, because it would have been a sit and duck if I had to stay out on those old tires. But once I saw I was starting, I don't know where I came out, like 10th or so, 8th, 9th, 10th, somewhere around there. It was just kind of, you have to keep that momentum going. You have to take every single possible spot you can get, because if you kill your momentum in this package, it's over.
Well, nonetheless, you played the tire sets right. You were able to hold on the restarts and the final green-white checkered attempts to take away this win. And this means, I think, a statement for you, because you wanted the road course Watkins Glen a couple weeks back. That had no yellows. You got a couple yellows here tonight. We end up winning at Michigan. What will this say for some of the oval success that you had last season? How is that going to carry over into this season in the final races before you reach the playoffs, which, unlike last season, you're eligible for?
Yeah, I saw that, so I'm pretty pumped about that. Hopefully I can make all the races, and I mean, pretty much any oval, it's the same strategy at the 1.5 miles. Try and keep the clean air, and short tracks, it's about track position too, just a little more about driving style, but feel pretty confident about it, and we'll see how it plays out.
I think the win certainly feels good going into Talladega, right? Knowing that Super Speedway racing, how crazy that is. You're able to have 2 wins. You're locked into the playoffs. You don't have to worry about that. But Brian, before we let you go on this fantastic win for Michigan International Speedway, is there anybody you just want to give a shout out to? Any teams, sponsors, or really anybody that makes it happen for you on track virtually?
It was fun racing with Jacob, teammate out there. Thanks to you guys for doing the broadcast as always, and everybody else out there for racing. It was a good time for the most part, especially that long green flag run there. I love green flag pit stops.
Well, we saw the green flag pit stops, we saw the caution pit stops, we saw the green-white checkers, we saw everything, but you're end up with the checkered flag after all of it. A big congratulations on your 2nd win this season, Brian, and of course, we wish you the best of luck in the Talladega. I know you can go into that with a relieved mindset, knowing you're locked in the playoffs and you won't have to worry about it.
Oh yeah, and I'm terrible at restrictor plate racing, so that is very nice.
Well, Brian, a big congratulations on this win, and of course, wishing you the best of luck, not only for Talladega, but the rest of the season to follow. Thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome, thanks.
Brian M. Smith, the winner here tonight from Michigan International Speedway. What a way to do it in the final lap. So what a way it was for this driver right here, Michael Newbraw in the 56. Was all the way back in 29 to start this affair, and he ends up all the way in the top 3, just behind Brian M. Smith for the race win in the final green-white checkered attempt. Michael, we'll bring you in from pit road. A great 2nd place finish here from Michigan. You started back in 29th out of the 30 cars to start this race, and it was a trot up through the field. Give us the perspective of what that was like in this kind of scenario and this type of racing, which usually doesn't give you time to relax most of the time.
It was stressful because we couldn't get a long green flag run, and that was the whole purpose of me starting in the back. Was I was saving tires, and I was gonna later in the runs was gonna try to pick them off. But obviously with the cautions, they were falling just perfect to where you'd exchange out your tires, and you're like it was stressful to get in there. That last the last caution before the big one. That really helped, because I think I had about maybe 4 more laps of fuel left before I was going to have to pit under green. So when that caution came out, that was huge for me.
And strategy obviously was a big portion of the race before the yellow came out with 8 laps to go. And for you, you were in a very interesting group with guys like Adam Alashire. In the case with Nicola Suzuki, there were a lot of guys who were running out of fuel because they were kind of on the opposite end. They had stayed out on one of the more recent cautions earlier in the race For you, was that any sort of troubles with fuel conservation and making sure you were going to make it to the end, especially given the stop that happened within the final segment and coming to the final 10 laps before green white checkered started?
Yes, yeah, that was the thing. Like when I looked at the gauge, I was like, I have like 4 laps before I'm out of fuel. I need a caution like it was yesterday. And then as soon as that caution came out, I was like, all right, I'm going in for my last set of tires, and we should be good to go to the end.
Well, you were good to go to the end. Know that the green white checkers lasted, I think, longer than anybody wanted it to for 3 attempts, but you end up with a solid finish here tonight. Going into this race, you have a good margin into the point standings for the top 10 in the playoffs. So what does this finish say about the momentum you're going to roll into here, and especially given the cushion that you have going into Talladega, which I think everybody knows, even drivers and broadcasters alike, know that that track is full of unexpectedness and chaos.
It is. It's full of unexpectedness. It's one of those tracks where either you get really, really lucky, or you're on the other end of it, and it's just a crap show. It feels good though. At starting P30th, I think I during the practice run, I kind of went out and just seen how many laps I could go, and checking just my tires. At the very beginning of the race, that's what I was doing. Every time we had a caution, like every 7 laps, I'd come in and I was still at like 99, 100. So I knew I could save the tires. It was just getting to the end of the race.
You got to the end of the race with a clean race car. You end up P2 in the second step of the podium here from Michigan. Before we let you go, Michael, I know there's a lot of people that make it happen for you on track, virtually, and even off the track as well. So who are those people? Any teams, sponsors, or just anybody you just like to give the love and shout outs to?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely Drinking Bros Racing. We started the team a long time ago, and it's just turned into a brotherhood. We kind of merged with Rowdy, and we're all kind of in one Discord. It's just one giant brotherhood all together. Obviously FEG, who builds the computer, and Fanatec with the steering wheel, and then I'd also like to thank my daughter Alyssa and Haley, and then of course my wonderful wife Jennifer.
Well, Michael, we certainly appreciate the time you took to talk with us here in the broadcast booth. We want to congratulate you on this amazing P2 finish here for the Michigan International Speedway, and wishing you the best of luck moving into Talladega next Wednesday night.
Thanks, Kenneth. You guys are great. Have a good night, guys.
Michael Newbraw comes home in P2 after starting back in P29. What a route through the field it was for him. He's going to have a heap of points going into Talladega next week when we come back for full Wide Racing Cup action. But we still got one more interview left for your top 3. And the driver who started back in P2 ends up P3 at the end of it all. It's a 75 of Nicholas Vizzuti. We'll bring him in from pit road, the P3 finisher here tonight, Nick. And I want to say that these the last restarts were something. I don't think any drivers can accurately give a solid description of what it was without at least losing their mind in the slightest. But how was that for you in the final laps? There was a large wreck in front of you and a lot of other drivers at the same place, and just the overall atmosphere of a green-white checkered scenario. How was that for you behind the wheel tonight?
Yeah, it's always a little tough. You got to balance aggression with keeping the car clean. So anytime there's green, white, checkered, let alone multiple, it's kind of a matter of you want to have a good restart, but you want to make sure not to stack up everyone behind you, and also not put yourself in a bad position. So we got gifted a little track position with that big wreck, but we also got gifted a little nose damage. But we held on all right, considering we had to do it 3 times in a row. So I'm not always the best at restarts, and I think we did all right. I was feeling good on the first and second one, and each time the caution came out, so I was glad to not lose spots when you got people behind you breathing down your throat.
And I can imagine behind the wheel, when you get the restarts underway at a track like this, especially even with Auto Club to start the season, there's so much to look forward to in the front windshield and in the rearview mirror as well. But this position finish here, Nicholas, 3rd place out of all of this after starting 2nd, so safe to say that you had a very solid race since the beginning. And now coming out of this one, it's the second half of the season. Know that you haven't been able to quite capture victory lane just yet. What are the strategies here from here on out to the playoffs beginning after Daytona to ensure that not only you're going to be part of the 10 that are won for the championship, but also that you can probably get some wins under your belt as well by the time that comes?
Yeah, we got a lot of fast guys that have joined this year, which is great to race with them. You always learn a lot. For me, I typically find myself in the best positions when I'm a little conservative in the middle of the race and then turn up the aggression later on. And so I think to get a win, we're probably going to have to either make a good strategy call one of these weeks or get a win at a plate track. I mean, you never know. Sometimes on the shorter tracks, there's a lot of mayhem, and the ones that I'm better at, I think we can compete there. But it's been good competing with the whole new level of guys here, and I sure hope I can get a win. We missed a couple races, so we're pretty far out of the playoff picture, but hoping we can get at least one to lock us in.
Well, still a lot of time left in the season, so of course that's always still in the cards, Nicholas. But I want to ask this final question, but before we let you thank all the people that make it happen for you, Talladega next week, Super Speedway Racing. You ready for it?
Yeah, I am ready for it. We've had some trouble with the cup package, so we're going to open setups, and I think that'll help just letting people adjust a little bit to get a little bit more side by side, get the outside rolling, and I hope that makes a big difference, because the past few times we've gone to a plate track, it's been difficult to get runs on the outside and get enough people up there to get rolling. So I'm hoping that we get a little more side by side racing, and that winds up, giving us an ability to make some passes and getting in the front.
It was an exciting one tonight from Brooklyn, Michigan. I know that next week is going to bring a lot of excitement as well. But before we let you go, on the third place finish tonight, Nicholas, is there anybody you just want to thank for making it all happen? Any teams, sponsors, or just anybody else you'd just like to mention here to give the love and shout-outs to?
Well, shout out to Tyler Murray, man. He's doing a lot of multitasking and doing stuff for the league. Shout out to Dustin Webb for making it my teammate this week. And always good to race with him. And thank you guys for broadcasting. You guys always do a great job, and I know it was another long one tonight.
Well, we certainly appreciate the support, Nicholas. Want to give you a huge congratulations on the third place finish here tonight from Michigan, and of course, wishing you the best of luck for the Super Speedway racing that'll ensue at Talladega next week. Congratulations on the finish tonight.
Thanks, Ken. It's always good to be in the booth.
Nicholas Suzuki comes home at the last step of the podium in P3. That'll close out our segment for the driver interviews tonight from Michigan. We're not going to have Francisco near. He's a little busy in his own commitments, so we won't be able to discuss with him and debrief tonight's race from Michigan. But at least from the perspective of the lead here in the broadcast booth, this was a wild one for Michigan, and I don't think there was any surprise that it was going to be a wild one here at this track for sure. We had a lot of great restarts, lots of great passes, 3, 4, 5 wide, driving for position. These drivers put it all on the line with many cautions, the strategy calls, and of course chaos ensuing near the end with the three green-white checkers that gave Brian M. Smith his second race win of this Season 3 campaign. Looking forward to Talladega next week. We will have a doubleheader in Dega next week, and that will start October 5th, 2021 on Tuesday, where we'll have coverage of the 4-Wide Racing ARCA Series as they kick off, of course, from Big Bad Old Talladega, but that will be 9:10 p.m. Eastern over on the K1 Racing Network YouTube channel. That's where you can catch all of the 4-Wide Racing ARCA coverage up until the end of this season. But 4-Wide Racing Cup Series coverage stays here next week as well, 9:10 p.m. Eastern, where we will kick off the second race of the doubleheader on Wednesday, October 6th. Of course, from the same track, Talladega will be in the Cup Car Series as well. Open setups. We'll see what we find with the entire field. We'll see if we get a new winner. We'll see if we get a repeat winner. We'll see exactly what happens on the route to the Championship 5 later this year from the Atlanta Motor Speedway. So that'll conclude our broadcast of Round 10 of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series from virtual Michigan International Speedway. I want to thank Tyler Murray, and for him and everybody as a part of the race council that makes things happen each and every week. And for my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacquiao, and all of us at MaxSpeedTV, my name is Kenneth Bueno, saying so long, good night from Michigan. We'll see you next week at the larger track, Big Bad Talladega, coming up next Wednesday.